This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate first part of What If Kid Naruto Discovered Alien Technology. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
As the small cargo ship warmed up its warp drive in preparation for their escape, the pilot cried out in a panic, "The military cruiser has been destroyed." The onboard scientist swore, "Damn, those pirates. We can't let our research data and equipments fall into their hands. The Galactic government should have sent us more than one cruiser as our escort, now it's too late." Pale faced and staring at the screen, the pilot said, 15 seconds to warp core activation. The pirate ships are turning towards us." The scientist prayed, "Hurry," as the ship started counting down, 10, 5, 2. As the cargo ship started its warp, the pilot exclaimed with relief, "It's activated." Just as it vanished into warp, a laser blast from one of the pirate ships slammed into the back of the ship, causing an explosion that rocked the ship. As he observed the reading output on the screen, the pilot said haltingly, "Losing warp integrity. We will be dropping out of warp in 10 seconds. The cargo doors has been blasted open, the equipments are already falling out of warp into space." "That doesn't matter. We still have the research data. Prepare for another warp immediately after we exited into space," the researcher said. A few light years away, a number of objects covered in some of the Galactic Federation's hardest materials started to leave warp space. As the objects fell and sank throughout the elemental nations, the gravitational pull of the shining blue-green planet beneath them started to draw them in. As he fled from the pursuing villagers, 6-year-old Naruto sobbed. As the gate guards attempted to dissuade the crowd from pursuing him, he was able to escape into the forest amid the confusion. Naruto only needs to wait for the Anbu to enter the forest and take him to safety, which is typically what happens when the villagers start pursuing him. Naruto gazed up into the night sky while huddled pathetically beneath a big tree. He noticed bright streaks of light flying across the sky, and his eyes widened. Naruto joyfully exclaimed, "Wow!" as he observed the lights. Some of them appeared to be approaching. One of the lights flew in Naruto's direction, and his eyes widened. Before he could even move, the fireball from the sky crashed into his body, causing him to cry out in shock. In the midst of his weak arms flailing helplessly in the heat, he came across a cool metal object that abruptly wrapped around his right wrist. Flame, heat, and burning him up. Nothing appeared to happen for a while, but then Naruto felt a cooling sensation as he started to recover despite the flames burning him. Before Naruto felt his head clear, it was filled with static. The host brain has finished synchronizing, the host body is healing, the host name is being extracted from memories, etc. "I am Special Information and Containment Archive Unit 002, Naruto Uzumaki, and I have successfully connected to your brain patterns and waves. Tell Naruto Uzumaki to leave the flaming remains of my container shell, as it is impeding my ability to heal your body, even though your body appeared to have exceptional regenerative abilities as well." As he stumbled out of the crater where the fireball had struck him, Naruto let out a painful cry. Even though the fire was still burning, everything in the crater had burned to ash. His burnt skin started to heal itself, and he crawled out of the crater. To his dismay, Naruto discovered that all of his clothing had been burned off, leaving only an odd metal bracelet that fit snugly around his right wrist. In Naruto's mind, the Special Information and Containment Archive Unit 002 said, "Host is embarrassed about nakedness. Do you wish me to project a holographic image of clothes over your body?" As Naruto gazed at the bracelet in wonder, he asked, "What's a holographic image?" He felt as though the bracelet was speaking to him. "A holographic image is a projection of light to create an image. I have the tools needed to create solid and non-solid light projections in a 6 meters radius around myself," the bracelet said. "Would you like me to create a holographic projection of your clothes?" Naruto stared at the bracelet in confusion as he struggled to understand what holographic meant. "Okay." "Beginning holographic projection of last image of Naruto Uzumaki's clothes," the bracelet read. As a glimmer of light swept across his body, Naruto let out a startled cry. He was wearing the same clothes before the fireball burned him, and they were back. In wonder, Naruto extended his hand to feel the silky fibers. Naruto started to say, "That's," but was interrupted when a black shadow fell next to him. As he examined Naruto, the cat-masked Anbu inquired anxiously, "Naruto, are you hurt?" "Cat Anbu-san," exclaimed Naruto with joy, "I make a new friend." The Anbu gazed at the crater next to Naruto and said, "Good, good." The reflection of the blazing flames within the crater illuminated his mask. The gate guards who had just stopped the mob were among the other figures that emerged from the forest. Iruka, who was watching the gates now. Iruka started to explain, but the Anbu nodded, interrupting her. The second shift started just as the fireballs fell into the forest. I remembered Naruto was running in this direction, so I need you to take Naruto home. The rest of the Anbu and I will need to check out the places where these fireballs fell. The cat, masked Anbu replied. After nodding, Iruka hurriedly gathered Naruto in his arms and started to run in the direction of the village. As he carried the rap boy home, Iruka said politely, "Go to sleep, Naruto." Naruto started to say something, but the weight of the night's events overcame him and knocked him out cold. On the second day, when Naruto went alone to one of the training grounds, the bracelet read, "Analyses complete." He was aware, even at this age, that none of the kids' parents would let them play with him. Naruto inquired, "What do you mean, bracelet-san?" The village had been in a frenzy for the last 2 days as everyone talked about the fireballs that were falling from the sky. When Naruto went out to play today, a number of the villagers gave him terrified looks and whispered about his name and the fireballs. The bracelet said, "It looks like I've landed on a less developed planet. According to the Underdeveloped Planet Preservation Pact, I am forbidden to reveal myself to any members from undeveloped planets. Unfortunately, I've already given you the knowledge of advanced civilization. By the Federation laws, that means you are now officially a member of the Federation and are answerable to the Underdeveloped Planet Preservation Pact." "Huh?" inquired Naruto, perplexed. The bracelet calmly stated, "It means that you must never reveal my existence to any member of your planet. Until a ship arrives to pick us up and return us to Federation space, you must keep my existence a secret. I am also assigning administrator rights to only you and ban all access of my usage to others not of the Federation." Naruto exclaimed, "So you'll be my secret friend?" Naruto's excited shout interrupted the bracelet as it started to say, "I am an AI, not your friend." Naruto inquired, "What's your name, bracelet-san? Since apparently my full designation is too long for you to remember, you may call me SICA Unit 002. The provided bracelet." Naruto joyfully exclaimed, "SICA, you're my second best friend," and started to dance. "Old man Hokage is my first best friend. Since you are an underdeveloped planet citizen that came into knowledge of the Federation, I will begin training you in the basic math and science of the Federation," SICA said while disregarding Naruto's joyful scream. With astonishment, Naruto questioned, "You can do that? Be my teacher? I was created with the sole purpose of containing and archiving all the cultural, technological and symbology information that the Pan-Galactic Federation possessed," SICA clarified. "I will be able to coach you in understanding these subjects through our mental link." Naruto exclaimed, "Cool, when do we start?" with joy. The objects the Anbu had retrieved from the forest's flaming craters captivated Sarutobi's attention. Although there were 5 craters in all, the items in 3 of them had turned to ash, and the items in the other 2 were removed and brought to the Anbu headquarters for analysis. After successfully opening one of the boxes, they discovered a suit composed of a material that was impervious to elemental attacks and kunai. The Anbu had tested it on the suit. A large rectangular piece of metal was found in the other box, but it served no apparent purpose beyond the metal's indestructibility against Anbu attacks. After reviewing the reports of the tests conducted on the suit and block, Sarutobi declared, "I am classifying this suit as a rank. Keep it safely guarded in the Shinobi Armory. If the metallic block revealed no other properties, leave it in storage for experimentation at a later date. I've received information that several of the fireballs also landed in the neighboring elemental countries. Wherever these items came from, we must assume that the neighboring countries might also find items such as what we've retrieved. I want 2 Anbu teams sweeping the fire country for any sign of these craters. If any more of the fireballs manage to land in our own country, we'll have jurisdiction over the items found in them." The Anbu captain nodded and stepped aside to give the 2 Anbu teams orders. "Yes, Hokage," he said. With a sigh, Sarutobi pondered the origin of these objects. Naruto's small brain had had a hard time processing the new theories that SICA had taught him. However, he had always persisted and assimilated the new information in his mind because he wanted to impress his new friend. As Naruto absorbed what SICA taught him, the next 6 months went by swiftly. Because SICA was always there to support him, he was also better equipped to withstand the villagers' glares. Naruto was also able to avoid being chased by the villagers multiple times thanks to SICA's sensors, which could detect anything within a mile. Naruto started to establish a reputation for being incredibly swift and elusive. Naruto started to realize that the Pan-Galactic Federation was an alliance of numerous planets, that these civilizations had space-traveling starships, and that his own planet was regarded as underdeveloped since it had not yet attained the technological level of space travel. SICA had been able to relate to him pictures of the different planets, starships, and technologies that the Pan-Galactic Federation possessed thanks to his mental communication. Naruto also understood that SICA was a sophisticated computer program that could analyze problems and find answers just like a real person, rather than being a living being. SICA's demonstration of the wonders had opened Naruto's world, and he had vowed to learn more about Federation science in order to develop those technologies for himself. One day, curious, Naruto asked, "Are there any other units that are like you?" To my knowledge, only 2 SICA units were created. The first unit resides with the scientist that created me while I was kept as a test copy for upgrades, SICA said. "Oh, because I've been wondering. Remember the night I found you? According to what I heard from the villagers, there were a few more other craters. I wonder if there's any more of you that has fallen and survived the trip. Probability of other Federation tools surviving is 30%. I was made of a very dense alloy that made me highly resistant to scratch or heat. However, most Federation equipments are not built to survive atmospheric entrance or high temperature," SICA stated. "From the way I came into this world, computation probability states that I must have been in a ship that encountered an accident, releasing objects such as my container into this planet's atmosphere. Since I have no data of the items that had fallen with me, I am unable to deduct if the other fallen Federation items survived." "Oh, but if they survive, they might be high-tech equipments that we might be able to use, isn't it?" Naruto responded with excitement. "Yes, though I doubt anyone on this planet would know how to operate a Federation equipment," SICA replied. "However, according to the Preservation Pact, it might be best for us to retrieve any objects that had fallen to ensure this planet remains uncontaminated." Naruto exclaimed, "Okay, the next time I see Old Man Hokage, I'll ask him if they found anything. So what other functions do you have besides archiving of information?" "Besides archiving information, I am also able to scan a 1-mile radius around myself, project holographic images in a 6 meters radius, monitor health of user as well as apply symbology healing onto the user should the user requires. I am also able to match the mental wavelengths of my user to allow for telepathic speech," SICA clarified. "All these functions are vital because I was created for high-level intelligence officers, basically spies. I will self-destruct under orders from my user, or if unregistered personals tried to access my database." Naruto stormed into Sarutobi's office and asked, "Did the ninjas find anything in the crater?" He sighed as he observed Naruto's animated expression. "I am sorry, Naruto, but I can't reveal anything. It's considered a village secret." Naruto exclaimed, "Aha!" with triumph. "That means you did find something. What is it?" Sarutobi sighed in agony and said, "Naruto, I really can't tell you, but it's a good thing you're here. I was planning to ask you if you'd like to attend the academy earlier. It might fill up your time with something practical to do." Naruto exclaimed, "The academy? Where they teach you how to be a ninja and stuff?" Sarutobi smiled affectionately at Naruto and said, "Yes, Naruto. Remember your promise to be a Hokage one day?" Naruto sneered, "Oh that, I've a new dream now." "Really, and what's that?" inquired Sarutobi curiously. Naruto grinned and remarked, "I want to travel to the stars." One of Naruto's worst life experiences was attending the Ninja Academy. After 3 months at the academy, Naruto came to the realization that his teachers were purposefully making it difficult for him and failing his tests. Without SICA, his ninja studies would have come to a standstill. SICA's 1-mile scanning radius allowed it to detect the right directions that the distant teachers gave the students rather than the incorrect counsel they gave Naruto. He had access to the library as a student at the academy, but the librarian would not let him check out any books. But SICA had also stepped in to help. Naruto only needed to spend an hour or so in the library to complete scanning all of the materials on the bookshelves because it could scan anything within a mile. Even the books in the restricted area, which was only accessible by Chunins and Jonins, were scanned by SICA. With all of this information, SICA started organizing the library of ninja knowledge according to the level of difficulty and started teaching Naruto the ninja arts using the vast amount of book knowledge it contained. During one of his visits to the elderly Hokage, Naruto also surreptitiously looked through his personal library and office. His dream was to travel the stars now, of course, but he also wanted to learn as much as he could about the Hokage and the ninjas because he had witnessed their amazing skills. The instructors at the academy had questioned him sharply when he first demonstrated his fireball technique, asking him where he got the idea. Since the book from which the technique originated was located in the library's restricted section, Naruto was placed in detention for a week and reported to the Hokage when he was unable to respond. Naruto had to fabricate a story about how he picked up the technique after copying a scroll that a ninja had dropped. Fortunately, the Hokage had nodded in comprehension and warned him not to attempt such a risky tactic again. Naruto learned to conceal his actual abilities after that, and he only demonstrated a low academic standing. He soon discovered that the teachers had been happy to see him perform poorly and that doing so would make things easier for him. Naruto started to question why he was the target of such animosity. He had grown up faster than others his age because of the vast amount of knowledge SICA was teaching him, but he was also more reserved and quiet in class as a result. It made it possible for him to bear the hurt he felt from the way the others treated him better than he might have if SICA hadn't been there. SICA provided in one of their training sections, "I have isolated the problem for your inability to create a clone technique. From the energy readings I took of you while you did the technique and compared it to those who had done it successfully. It seemed your inability to control your chakra energy is causing the problem. You would do well in techniques that require you to use a large amount of chakra, like the fire breathing technique, but you'll do poorly at those that require finer control and smaller amounts of chakra. I have taken several chakra control exercises through various books and will begin to teach them to you." Naruto grinned and said, "Thanks SICA. You know, I've been going through the data about the use of symbology in the Federation. I seem to remember seeing some books on the basics of seal making in the library. Are they similar?" "In a way, yes. The way that they were applied in your world, however, is different. Symbology used in the Federation is more focused on instant results, used in offensive and defensive purposes. The seal making on your planet, however, requires laborious amounts of seals to complete one powerful task. They are also mostly used for sealing objects and containment." SICA replied, "I've looked through your schedule. If you sleep 1 hour less every day, I will be able to teach you the basics of symbology and sealing." Naruto exclaimed, "Great SICA. Thank you. With gratitude. Actually, I was thinking of telling the Hokage that I want to quit school for this year and resume the studies when a year later. I plan to use the excuse of wanting to be in the same class as my age group to get him to agree." SICA helpfully supplied, "Your plan has a probability of 90% success based on the Hokage's cordial treatment of you. It would also allow me more time to train you in more useful knowledge." As he stood up and headed toward the Hokage tower, Naruto exclaimed, "Then I'll find the old man now and tell him." After a year, Sarutobi was concerned. Since he had asked to drop out of school and return to his age group a year later, Naruto had hardly seen him in a year. Naruto started training in the training fields every day, according to the Anbu's initial reports. Sarutobi was worried and had used his telescope technique to see what Naruto was up to. He had been taken aback to discover Naruto employing methods he shouldn't have been aware of. After carefully interrogating the boy, it was discovered that he had repeatedly entered the library's restricted area and had committed some of the scroll's methods to memory. Naruto had occupied his days by staying at home or practicing simple sparring on a training dummy in the training fields after Sarutobi warned him not to practice those techniques until he was older. Based on his observations, Naruto essentially had no interaction with other people outside of the times he had to traverse the village. Sarutobi had attempted to get together with Naruto once a week for his favorite meal, ramen. Yes, Naruto still goes to the Ichiraku ramen bar once a week, but he informed Tuchi, the owner of the ramen bar, that Naruto had asked Tuchi to assist him in purchasing his weekly groceries in exchange for a hefty tip. Naruto confided in the owner of the ramen bar that he was constantly overcharged for groceries and only received the lowest quality goods. Tuchi had muttered angrily about how Naruto, who he had always regarded as one of the most courteous children he had ever seen, had been treated by the majority of the villagers. In addition to being pleased that Naruto had made a new friend in the owner of the ramen bar, Sarutobi was even more shocked to see Naruto preparing wholesome meals in his tiny apartment kitchen. Sarutobi, who had known the child for a long time, was uncomfortable because Naruto had also given up his messy habits and had even started to keep his tiny apartment neat. After enrolling in the Ninja Academy, Naruto appeared to have changed. As Naruto started ninja school tomorrow, Sarutobi could only hope that he would get along better with his age-appropriate peers. Naruto carefully traced the healing symbol onto his body and asked, "Is the old man spying on me again?" Naruto now has access to basic symbology magic, such as healing flesh wounds and calling forth fireballs. In addition to a few other elemental symbols he had affixed to parts of his body that could be kept hidden. After a pause, SICA responded, "From my connection to my copy, it seemed that the Hokage is looking at your shadow clone as it prepares dinner." Naruto let out a sigh. He was summoned to Old Man Hokage's office 2 weeks after he had left school a year prior, and he began questioning him about the ninja skills he was honing on the training fields. Naruto realized then that the Hokage had been surreptitiously watching him. The fact that the old man had taken the time to watch out for him had warmed him in part. His training would be severely hampered, and another part of him was irritated that he was being watched without being informed. Naruto had assured the Hokage that he would wait until he was older before attempting the Chunin ninja techniques. SICA had figured out how the Hokage was spying on him by the time he got home. It seems that old Hokage had a talent in his library known as the telescope technique. The Hokage had invented this method of spying on people. In the scroll, The Hokage also noted the technique's apparent limitations, which allowed SICA to devise a scheme to get away from the Hokage and train independently. SICA had taught Naruto how to make solid clones of himself using the multiple shadow clones technique, which is regarded as a forbidden technique. After calculating the risk, SICA concluded that Naruto's large chakra reserves meant that the technique would only have a 10% chance of killing him. Additionally, each time the Hokage applied the telescope technique to Naruto, SICA was able to locate his energy signature. While the real Naruto would be able to avoid the telescope technique by going to locations where the Hokage wouldn't consider looking for him to train, the plan had been for Naruto to trick the Hokage into believing the shadow clone was actually Naruto. When Naruto employed the multiple shadow clones technique, they learned an unexpected fact. SICA was also replicated, but she still performed the same function as the original. As soon as the clones were dispelled, SICA had realized that any information they had been given was transferred to the original. As a result, Naruto and the clone SICA spent the majority of the day at home, with the clone SICA teaching Naruto Federation sciences and book knowledge related to Federation symbology, seal making, and ninja techniques. The real Naruto would acquire all of the clones' memories of what they had learned when the clones were expelled at the end of the day. Additionally, SICA requested that the cloned copy of itself continue intricate scanning and calculations of its surroundings. This allowed the cloned copy to either relay the information back to itself at the end of the day or continuously send it to SICA via a sub-wave light link throughout the day. In order to avoid the Hokage's suspicions, the cloned Naruto spent the remainder of the year learning book knowledge at home and only occasionally went out for training. Meanwhile, the real Naruto and SICA went to the remote training grounds and started learning various ninja techniques, seal making, and symbology. Because of his increased understanding of Federation technologies, Naruto started collecting materials to start constructing some potentially useful lower-tech equipment. After mastering the fundamentals of symbology and seal making, Naruto was able to combine the two to create a wooden propulsion gun that could fire pellets with tremendous force by engraving multiple seals and symbols inside of it. It had taken him a month to complete that piece of work, but it had been well worth it. He had to come up with inventive ways to use seals and symbols because, after all, he had no way of creating the smaller components of a real gun. You will begin your schooling tomorrow. A waste of time since your ninja skill level had reached and maybe surpasses those of Scand of Chunin level. SICA replied. Your chakra reserves had also grown rapidly through the chakra enhancement and control exercises you've been doing for the past year. It could now be compared to most Jonin levels of reserves, though your control is somewhat lacking. Taking offense at the sensitive topic, Naruto exclaimed, "Hey, I'm working on my control every day." He had to put in a lot of effort to reach his current level of chakra control. Anyway, I have to keep up appearance, though I feel older than my 8 years old. You know what exists outside this planet now, in space, and all the wonders that could be accomplished with technology and symbology. SICA replied. There's a 100% chance that you'll mature faster because of this knowledge. Naruto sighed and remarked, I just hate the fact that I have to pretend to be stupid just because other people hate me. Though you could always continue teaching me the Federation science while we're in class. As it started working, SICA remarked, that's a good suggestion. I'll begin to rearrange your schedule for tomorrow now. Nervously, Iruka collected his prepared notes and accompanied Mizuki to the classroom. With a laugh, Mizuki said, nervous? Don't worry, you'll get used to teaching in no time. As they entered the classroom, Iruka said, her smile waning, ah yes, I hope so. Apparently anxious on their first day of school, the kids were sitting quietly in their seats. Mizuki gave Iruka the class name list and said, you can take the roll call, helps you get to know who the students are. Alright. Everyone, welcome to your first day of the academy. I am Iruka Sensei and this is Mizuki Sensei. I will now begin calling out your name. Answer yes if the name is yours, Iruka said. Sakura Haruno. Hi. Shikamaru Nara. Hi. He read out the name, Naruto Uzumaki. Iruka paused, looking up to see the young boy he had saved so long before. I am here, Sensei. A tall, well-dressed boy with blonde hair raised his hand and yelled. Iruka arched an eyebrow. It appeared that the young Naruto had matured into a courteous adult. Iruka understood from Naruto's indifferent look that Naruto probably didn't recall him from that night so long ago. Iruka turned to Mizuki and nodded, saying, very well, that's the last of you. We will now begin class. Before instructing the kids to open their textbooks and start teaching them the fundamentals of chakra, he noticed Mizuki frowning slightly at Naruto. In the third week of classes, Naruto said, well, Iruka-sensei is a good but stern teacher. That Mizuki, however, is a snake. He may pretend to be nice, but I've already found him giving me misleading instructions a few times. I also overheard him calling me names. I wonder why so many people hate me. Do you wish me to come up with an answer for you? Asked SICA. Not really, unless you can read people's mind, there's no way for you to know why they would treat me this way. Naruto sighed. I could come up with a probable answer for you based on the information collected over the year, though it may not be the correct one. SICA responded. As he ate his bento lunch of cooked eel and leafy vegetables, Naruto asked, not expecting a response, really? Well, give it your best shot then. Why does everyone hate me? SICA was silent for a moment before responding. There's a 90% possibility that you're the container of the nine-tailed fox, Kyuubi. Naruto let out a strangled cry as he choked on his food. What? Some of the most common derogatory names the villagers called you were Demon Fox and the Fox Brat. All the people who said these words came from the older generation from the time when Kyuubi attacked this village, which just happened to be the day of your birthday. SICA said with a composed tone. I found a technique in the Forbidden Scroll created by the 4th Hokage meant to specially seal the nine-tailed fox into the body of a newborn child. According to the writings of the 4th Hokage, the Kyuubi could only be sealed in a child whose chakra coils had not yet developed. Naruto listened numbly as SICA went on, his bento dropping to the stone floor from his limp hands. I've also detected strange energy readings from you that were different from normal ninjas, especially when you were hurt and your wounds begin healing by themselves. I have reason to believe that was the Kyuubi's chakra healing you, a side effect from you being its container. SICA said, seemingly unconcerned about Naruto's. Those facts of course only result in an 80% possibility that my theory was true. The other 10% came from the fact that the 3rd Hokage had a letter in his room that I managed to scan a year ago. In it, it was stated from the 3rd Hokage to his future successor that you were the son of Minato Namikaze, who was the 4th Hokage. With his mind frozen in shock, Naruto asked in a numb tone, why didn't you tell me? SICA said in a perplexed tone, please clarify, Naruto. Why didn't you tell me about my father if you knew who he is from so long ago? Naruto bounded to his feet. Calmly, SICA remarked, you never asked me to, Naruto. I am an AI unless you give me instructions or specific questions. I can only provide you with my best answer fitting to your situations. With tears streaming down his eyes, Naruto closed them and fell back limply on his seat. My father is the 4th Hokage and he used me as a sacrifice to contain the Kyuubi. He's the reason I was hated throughout my life. How can he do this to me? From the accounts of books in the library, the 4th Hokage was ever a man to put his family and village first. According to a report in the Hokage's library, your father had wanted you to be known as the hero who saved Konoha. He had also not wanted to sacrifice another child if he could ask for his own child to carry the burden. SICA replied, unmoved by Naruto's fury. He had been willing to sacrifice his own life to make sure his son and the village he loves would remain safe from the Kyuubi. Your father is not the one at fault here. As he attempted to gather his thoughts, Naruto lay motionless in his chair, silent tears streaming down his cheeks. What about my mother? Why did old man Hokage kept this a secret from me? Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki. She was reported missing from the hospital not long after your father gave his life to seal the Kyuubi into you. SICA stated. She was presumed dead, killed by enemy ninjas. Her body was never found. According to the reports, your father made a lot of enemies as the 4th Hokage, and there's many who would want to see the Namikaze clan dead. There had been no reports for me to give a conclusion as to why the current Hokage kept everything a secret from you and the whole village, but I may have an assumption which is 87% probable. Naruto's heart was clenched by the news of his mother's passing, so he asked painfully, what is it? Along with the reports on your mother, there was another one signed by the 3rd Hokage stating that the unnamed child of the 4th Hokage had disappeared during the Kyuubi attack. Based on the care and concern that the 3rd Hokage had always treated you with, and the enemies that your father had made, I can only assume that the Hokage had wanted to protect you from the enemies of your father. SICA deduced as Naruto let out a sorrowful eyes tightly close. If news got out that you're alive after your father had died, there would have been an endless string of assassination attempts made on you. Apparently from the history books of Konoha, there are records of your father slaughtering armies of enemy ninja during the Third Great Shinobi Wars. Iwagakure especially suffers heavy casualty because of him, and the Rock Ninjas bears a deep hatred for your father. SICA continued to deduce. As Naruto tried to gather himself, there was silence. Naruto remarked sourly, there's nothing much I can do now. I may have the skills to protect myself, but my abilities have never been tried against powerful ninjas. After old man Hokage went through so much trouble to keep me safe, I can't ruin his efforts now, not until I've become powerful enough to really stand on my own. If he isn't going to bring this matter up to me, I've also got to pretend that I've no idea of this. After all, I can't tell him I knew all this because of you. SICA concurred, saying, "That would be wise, Naruto." Before opening his streaked eyes, Naruto said painfully, "My father is the fourth Hokage, imagine that." SICA, "From now on, if you encounter any information that deals with me and my well-being, inform me immediately, understand?" SICA said as it committed the command to memory, "Understood, Naruto." Using the static lighting technique, Naruto's hands flashed through the hand seals. He slammed his left hand, which was coated in a layer of white-gray electrical energy, onto the icy metal of SICA that was fastened around his right wrist. SICA replied, "Power charging, 10%, 50%, 100%. Full power restored." Naruto then severed his left hand's chakra, which caused the electrical discharge to subside. He had discovered a strange characteristic of SICA soon after he had it. After 6 hours of activity, SICA's energy would run out. After that, it would require 2 more hours of charging in direct sunlight or an electrical charge applied directly to the bracelet's metallic layer. When SICA's energy ran low, Naruto initially started lounging in the sun. However, once SICA started teaching him the ninja arts, Naruto was able to replenish SICA's energy reserves by using specific lighting techniques. Naruto used the static lighting method, which ordinary shinobi used to charge their batteries, to bring SICA's power back. Both of their lives had been considerably easier as a result. With hesitation, Naruto said, "SICA." He was now more concerned with what he knew about his parents. "Do you have any information about my parents? You know their lives when they were in Konoha, what they like and dislike. I mean, you have the whole collection of information from the Hokage's library and the Shinobi library. Surely there must be something about them?" The Hokage's library did contain several high-rank mission reports about missions that your parents did. However, they are mostly assassination and diplomatic espionage missions that was kept in the Hokage's library because of the high level of secrecy. These secret mission reports are written with the bare minimum of details and unfortunately did not show much of your parents' characters. SICA apologized. Nevertheless, the library has an old bingo book with scant details about the two of them. Your father, Minato Namikaze, also called Konoha's Yellow Flash, was the fourth Hokage. Jiraiya, one of the 3 legendary Sanins, tutored your father, a very gifted ninja who was regarded as a genius that came once in a generation and graduated from the academy at the age of 10. The Flying Thunder God technique and the Rasengan are 2 of his unique ninja skills. Although I have information from the Hokage's library regarding how to make a Rasengan, none of my scanned data contained information about the Flying Thunder God technique. With hesitation, Naruto questioned, "Rasengan?" Unsure of the technique that was his father's speciality. The Rasengan is the formation of a controlled ball of condensed chakra that will cause great damage to whatever it is used on. There were notes written by the 3rd Hokage stating that your father meant to further enhance the Rasengan by adding his chakra element to it, but he was never able to accomplish it before his eventual death. SICA responded. Naruto sighed in pain and closed his eyes. "What about my mother?" Kushina Uzumaki was a former infamous ninja from the land of Whirlpool. The bingo book data had commented that she had a unique ninjutsu style. She was known for creating many one-of-a-kind ninjutsu techniques, with each of them applicable to different sorts of situation. SICA said. The majority of her ninjutsu techniques were categorized as B rank or lower, but her ability to use them effectively in combat earned her the title of Most Surprising Ninja. Kushina was categorized as an A rank ninja and was known for surprising and balancing her enemies with her quick and inventive application of the various techniques in battle. The bingo book did not list any specific techniques because it appeared that her weapon was her vast library of invented techniques, with any techniques being used at any time. Naruto laughed pitifully and said, "Name one unexpected ninja. I'd have liked to meet her." "Unfortunately, that's not possible. There's a 99.99% chance that she had already died by enemy hands," SICA replied calmly. At moments like these, Naruto was reminded that SICA was dead, and he rolled his eyes. It could be so dense at times. "Is there any way I could get more information about my parents?" Notes from the Hokage's library states that regular mission reports are found in the administration building. "Perhaps you'll like to send a shadow clone over to scan the place?" SICA offered. "Yeah, I'll do that," Naruto asked wistfully after pausing. "SICA, do you think you could teach me the Rasengan?" "Yes, I can. Based on the steps needed to achieve the Rasengan and your current level in mastering ninja techniques, it would not pose a danger to you," SICA responded. "I estimate you'll complete the training in 1 month's time if you spend an hour each day mastering it." Naruto grinned and said, "Great," with a yearning expression in his eyes. "It's just that learning that technique would be like having a real piece of the heritage that my parents left for me. I guess it's silly, but you know what, SICA? I've decided, once I mastered the Rasengan, I'll fulfill my father's wish and find a way to mix elemental chakra with the Rasengan." SICA started talking to himself in his head, calculating the number of months it will take. Since we have not yet started you on discovering your elemental affinity and learning elemental skills, chances of success are very low. Naruto snarled, "Oh, don't be a spoilsport, SICA." He created the shadow clone technique's hand seal. Beside him, a clone of himself appeared, dressed as a clone of SICA. Naruto assigned numbers to the clones he had made in his mind, naming them N1 and S1. He had been doing it for the previous 12 months. "Alright, I need you two to go to the administration building and scan everything over there." "Done," grinned N1 as she said it. "Wait for my good news." As he moved toward the administration building, N1 uttered the words, "S1, make us invisible." During his study of Federation sciences, the real Naruto discovered that he could become invisible by using SICA to bend light around himself. One of SICA's capabilities was holographic projection, which allowed it to bend light around any object in its field of view, making it invisible to the naked eye. SICA never bothered to inform Naruto of this further subtle use of her already existing functions. In a fit of rage, Naruto had instructed SICA to be more adaptable in determining what details to share with him and what not to. To put it another way, Naruto had requested that SICA give him information that would help him achieve his goals. N1 arrived at the administration building quickly by using the body flicker technique, which enabled him to travel long distances quickly multiple times. In order to deceive old man Hokage, Naruto left his shadow clone at home and used the body flicker technique, one of the first high-level techniques he had learned, to swiftly arrive at his secret training grounds. On his wrist, N1 gave the cloned SICA the command, "S1, begin scanning of the building, archive all the information scanned." The clones' names had caused some confusion when the real Naruto first started using the shadow clone technique. Since then, the clones have followed Naruto's naming convention, which involved simply assigning numbers to each clone's name. The clones had started referring to the real Naruto as boss. S1 declared, "Noted, begin scanning." As he waited for S1 to finish scanning, N1 yawned and leaned against the building's wall, watching the people pass. After 15 minutes, S1's voice could be heard in N1's head. "N1, according to your command, you wish me to let you know of any information regarding yourself and your well-being?" S1 responded. N1 scratched his head, unsure of what S1 wanted, and said, "Ah yes, boss did ask you to do that. I have detected 2 humans working in the building who seem to be plotting something about the boss," replied S1. "Passing you the recorded conversation now." Mizuki was telling us about the Kyuubi brat the other day, said that he was working hard at trying to flunk him by giving him harder questions for the tests when Iruka's not around. That brat somehow managed to did some of the questions, scraping by a pass. Mizuki swear that the fox must had a hand in this. That brat only did averagely in class, he should never have been able to attempt even a few of the Chunin level questions. A snide female mental voice spoke to him. "There, I told you. That brat is really the fox. I don't care what the third said about the demon being sealed in the brat, it's obvious that the fox is controlling the boy. I heard that Uzun and his gang are dropping by the brat's apartment today to spice up the fox's den a bit. They were saying that they had fixed bottle of paint with a stink component so that the stink will stay on after the paint's gone." A different woman's voice said maliciously. The first female warned, "Tell them to be careful, the third's protective of that brat. The third's an old fool, remember to misfile that mission documents I told you about, we must never let him find out about it." The second woman issued a warning. N1 grimly listens as the 2 women continue talking about clothes and shopping. "Alright S1, that's enough, cut off recording." S1 said, "As you request." The women's voices ceased. N1, feeling uneasy about the women's conversation, asked, "S1, do you have the recordings for the previous part of their conversation?" S1 responded, "Yes I do, playing now." The woman whom N1 mentally labeled second said, "This is the mission for Iruka that I told you about." First remarked somewhat sympathetically, "I guess it must be difficult to be a trainee teacher, having to make ends meet by taking on extra missions." Second said mockingly, "There's no need to feel sorry for him. He's one of them. He thinks the brat's innocent even though the Kyuubi killed his parents and left him an orphan so many years ago." Mizuki was telling us that he can't make any wrong moves against the brat while Iruka's around. Apparently Iruka reports to the third about that demon's progress in the academy every week. First was shocked to hear, he has the Hokage's personal ear. He's just a Chunin. From what I heard, he saved the brat from some villagers once many years ago when he's only a lowly gate guard. Second admitted. The Hokage remembered such things and he promoted Iruka to assistant teacher once he got some experience under his belt. But it's obvious what the Hokage's the real motive is, he wanted someone around to make sure the brat's safe. If you ask me, he's wasting good ninjas babysitting the demon. First said uneasily, "Maybe we shouldn't mess with Iruka then, What if the Hokage finds out? Oh, he wouldn't, not if you misfile it. That way no one would know that instead of a C-rank solo mission, it's actually an A-rank one. Second replied dismissively. After all, he's a chunin favored by the third, I am sure Iruka will survive somehow. Both women chuckled. You know, Mizuki was telling us about the Kyuubi brat the other day, the first episode started. With a fierce expression on his face as the clone felt waves of rage wash over him, N1 interrupted, alright, cut. S1, finish scanning everything and let me know if any other information against the boss, Iruka-sensei and the Hokage's well-being come up. S1 agreed and said, proceeding with request now. N1 waited in irate silence, knowing that once he told the real Naruto, there would be hell to pay. Iruka-sensei had just completed the basic math lesson when N1 gave Naruto all of the knowledge he had acquired. The archive of mission reports scanned by S1 was also likely being sent to SICA. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw Mizuki enter the classroom and take over from Iruka. His eyes blazed with rage. I now realize that Mizuki is truly opposed to me. Angrily, Naruto thought to himself. Additionally, I must figure out how to ensure Iruka's sensei's safety. Naruto reviewed N1's recollections. It seems that after S1 told N1 what had transpired, N1 had instructed S1 to report back if it discovered any additional conversations that would jeopardize the safety of himself, Iruka-sensei, and Old Man Hokage. 2 additional conversations concerning multiple administration officers concealing information to mislead the Hokage were picked up by S1. During one of the discussions, a different administrative officer became enraged over the Hokage's constant protection of the Fox Brat, and retaliated by destroying some of the crucial administration files. Naruto scowled. It appeared that Iruka-sensei and Old Man Hokage were receiving a lot of criticism for standing by him. If only he could figure out a way to assist them. As he considered this, a thought crossed his mind, and his eyes widened. He smiled as he glanced at SICA, who was encircling his right wrist. Yes, he would make it work, and it would work, because he would do everything in his power to keep the Hokage and Iruka-sensei safe because they had become his precious people. Glancing down at the sealed message in his hand, Sarutobi scowled. He had been getting intelligence reports on what was happening in the village for the last 2 weeks. Over the course of the 2 weeks, these reports were periodically delivered to his residence. He had the Anbu question the delivery boys, but each of them described the man who hired their services differently, indicating that the informer was concealing something. The issue was that the scroll's information was consistently extremely accurate, too accurate for Sarutobi to ignore a good thing. Sarutobi was able to prevent Iruka, a Chunin Academy teacher, from suffering severe injuries during a perilous A-rank mission thanks to the first scroll. With the next set of scrolls, Sarutobi also found a number of informants and leaks from the civilian political groups that were active in the ninja administrative building. With every scroll, the amount of information grew, and it appeared that the informant was extending his sphere of influence in Konoha. A rock village spy operating in Konoha under the pretense of a toy vendor was captured by Sarutobi. Sarutobi also received information about the underhanded transactions of a number of prominent Konoha merchants, which were revealed in the different scrolls. Sarutobi had responded by sending a few military police to watch those merchants, hoping they would do something foolish so the police could catch them. Sarutobi started to question this enigmatic benefactor's motivations. His naivete prevented him from assuming that this informant, who was most likely a strong and proficient infiltration ninja, would give this information away for free. Sarutobi started going through all of the data that the scrolls had sent up to this point, but he was only able to locate one common thread. All of the information that the unidentified informant gave could have hurt Konoha's residents if nothing had been done about it. The scrolls specifically emphasized plots against the Hokage or any of the Hokage's preferred ninjas. When Sarutobi had questioned his intelligence officers, they had all responded that the scrolls had nothing to do with them. Such a strategy would not have been used by Jiraiya, the primary source of intelligence news outside of Konoha. There were very few people in Konoha who could obtain so much information in such a large area in such a short period of time. Konoha was known for its strong ninjas who were skilled in the ninja arts, but it was never known for its strong infiltration agents. Sarutobi was ultimately unable to determine the identity of the informant. However, in case a new scroll arrived, he had designated one Anbu to continuously guard his home. The Anbu was instructed to give him the scroll right away if a new one did arrive at the Sarutobi clan home. As the scrolls continued to come in, Sarutobi eventually learned a great deal about things he was unaware of. He had also tightened his grip on the village. Sarutobi had also come to accept that perhaps there were ninjas watching over Konoha with the will of fire. That enigmatic informant was dubbed the Eye of Konoha by those Anbus who knew better. While Naruto was eating dinner, SICA declared, S3 had reported from the financial sector. One of the merchants has sent a huge bribe to Kuma, the civilian council member in charge of Konoha's banking system. Naruto swallowed the cooked eel and nodded. Did the Watcher clones receive the information? Checking the sublight link, yes, Watcher S1 has received the information. Watcher N1 is in the process of copying it, SICA stated. Naruto grinned and nodded. He had no idea how much dirt was concealed in Konoha when he started the intelligence operations. He started gathering information because he felt compelled to protect Iruka-sensei and Old Man Hokage. However, as time passed, he discovered that he enjoyed the entire intelligence gathering process. Being aware of someone's plans to hurt you or someone you care about and then turning those plans against them was therapeutic. The military police had apprehended and fined a number of villagers who had planned to damage his apartment, after Naruto sent a scroll alerting the Hokage to the incident beforehand. Another group that attempted to cause chaos in Naruto's house in retaliation was also apprehended. Cloned Narutos are now positioned next to the Hokage Tower, the Ninja Academy, the administrative building, and the financial sector. 10 additional Naruto clones were also moving through Konoha, collecting information as they went about the village. Every morning, Naruto would start the information gathering process by making clones. The cloned SICA that was fastened to these Naruto clones would be used to scan the corresponding regions. Initially, Naruto had only targeted information that could harm the Hokage or Iruka-sensei. Later on, he expanded it to cover the entire village's protection. Indeed, he was mistreated by the majority of the village's residents. However, if there was trouble in any part of the village, Old Man Hokage would be upset. Additionally, Naruto did not wish to emulate the villagers who had mistreated him. After all, he would simply be like those narrow-minded villagers he detested if he learned of information that could hurt the village and chose not to tell the Hokage. The cloned SICAs used their holographic projection skills to make each clone invisible in order to evade detection. Naruto had been warned by the real SICA that there was a clan in Konoha that had the ability to see through things. All of the cloned SICAs were reminded to constantly watch for the clan members by looking around them for their presence, even though SICA was unsure if those clan members could detect the invisible Naruto clones. According to the real SICA, each member of the Hyuga clan had a distinct genetic marker that made them easy to identify. Their bloodline abilities, known as the Byakugan, were derived from this genetic marker. Naruto would make a fresh batch of clones at nightfall. The clones from the morning would be replaced by these clones. The morning clones would then dispel themselves and give Naruto and SICA all of their information. Before going to bed, Naruto would go over the information to see if they had missed anything crucial. Naruto would then swap out the night clones for the morning clones when morning came. Additionally, he had made 2 unique clones for the day and night patrols that lurk in one of the training grounds with brushes and scrolls. Watcher S1, Watcher N1, and Dispatch S1. Dispatch N1 were the names given to these clones, respectively. Through the sublight link, all data from the different spy clone units was sent to Watcher S1 from their cloned SICAs. After that, Watcher N1 would get the data from Watcher S1 and record it on the scrolls. The Dispatch N1 would then either be dispatched immediately to the Sarutobi clan house or they would wait until morning or night before the next clone shift took over, depending on how serious the information was. The Anbu keeping watch over the Sarutobi residents would be misled when Dispatch S1 projected an image of an unidentified delivery boy over Dispatch N1. Naruto had made the decision to gather a little more information tonight. He had dispatched a clone to determine whether dirt could be found in the Anbu building. According to the clone, it had arrived at its location an hour ago and started looking around. SICA told Naruto, S7 from the Anbu building is transmitting data. A pause ensued before SICA went on. One of the 2 items Konoha found during the Starfall event was an advanced piece of technology that S7 reportedly found in one of the Anbu's old storage rooms. S7 reportedly scanned the Anbu building for this technology. According to the descriptions from the Anbu reports, the other item appeared to be a hazard suit designed for high-temperature operations. They had moved it to the Shinobi Armory where several Anbu had already tested it a few times, and they had given it the nickname, Miracle Suit. This item, a gene manipulator, was placed into storage and reportedly forgotten because the Anbu could not determine its purpose. With his eyes brightening at the prospect of obtaining some cutting-edge technology from the Federation, Naruto questioned, what are the chances of our success to retrieve both items without being detected? And what do those 2 items do? I understand what their names mean, but I am uncertain about their real functions. Chances of retrieval without detection are 20% for the hazard suit and 90% for the gene manipulator. Replied SICA. A gene manipulator, on the other hand, is a machine designed to supplement me in aiding any intelligence agents. The Federation contains many different species of sentient creatures besides humans. The gene manipulator comes in handy if an intelligence agent needs to infiltrate another planet that is not of his race or species. The hazard suit is an elemental-resistant suit made up of a material that can withstand blunt force attacks. It is used for operations in hostile environments. By entering the gene maps for the majority of the Federation's sentient species into the gene manipulator, the intelligence agent can use the device to transform into the species he is attempting to infiltrate, assuming all of the traits and physical characteristics of the target species. In other words, the intelligence agent's entire DNA structure is altered to facilitate more effective infiltration. The gene manipulator may also cure genetic diseases, but it does not cure bacterial or viral infections. If you are poisoned, altering your DNA structure won't help unless you're transforming into a species that is immune to the poison, and gene mutation won't change your overall mass as much. When the explanations were given, Naruto blinked. That's a lot of information. I think for the current time we could leave the hazard suit alone. It seemed to be more of help to the Anbu anyway. But about the gene manipulator, I understand how it's going to be useful in the Federation where humans aren't the only sentient race. But how is it useful to me right now, on my own planet? Your planet has certain humans possessing genetic quirks that you call bloodlines. I am able to scan and isolate the gene that causes these bloodline limits, since they are unique genetic markers in the normal human structure. SICA clarified. I could then pass the gene map to the gene manipulator and use it to give you that bloodline limit. Naruto said, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. A bloodline limit. He was aware of bloodline boundaries, and SICA was there to help him at every turn. His ninja arts training was comprehensive. What bloodline limit have you scanned? Currently I've only detected and identified the Byakugan blood limit, during the time when you pointed out one of the Hyuga clan members to me. SICA responded. After a pause, Naruto questioned, aren't the characteristic of the Byakugan bloodline white eyes? It would be pretty obvious to everyone that something happened if I started walking around with white eyes. Aren't there other bloodline limits you have detected? I've detected a few other bloodline limits through your journey around the village every day, but unfortunately since I do not have a name to go with the people who bears the genetic markers, I am unable to deduct what type of bloodline limits belong to those genetic markers. It would not be advisable for me to pass them to you. SICA clarified. But I might have a recommendation. SICA responded, according to an old Anbu report, Orochimaru, a student of the third Hokage, used to carry out disgusting research on implantation of the first Hokage's wood-release gene on human subjects. His methods were unethical and resulted in many deaths. When the third Hokage learned about it, his lab was shut down and he was chased out of the village. I know where that lab is right now, and based on the Anbu reports, the labs were just closed and sealed with the strongest seal the third Hokage could find. The wood-release gene is a strong bloodline that is not physically visible, so I recommend making a clone to scan that area for the wood-release gene marker. The gene solutions and other equipment that might still contain the wood-release gene were never destroyed, they were just sealed inside. Naruto nodded and smiled. Alright, tell S7 to begin infiltration into the Anbu building to retrieve the gene manipulator. Beside him, a clone of himself puffed into existence as he made the hand seals for the shadow clone technique. Naruto eyed the clone and said, N16, you know what to do. Dispel yourself after S16 have gotten the wood-release genetic marker. 2 hours later, N7 arrived at the apartment. His smile, as he placed the gene manipulator in front of the Naruto, who was waiting for it calmly, signaled that the operation had been successful. After successfully completing his mission to obtain the wood-release gene marker, N16 dispelled himself and informed SICA of his success. After saying, here you go boss, good luck, N7 released himself with a hand seal and vanished in a cloud of smoke. As SICA spoke in his mind, Naruto fingered the black metallic block in front of him, initiating startup. Naruto marveled as the gene manipulator's top unfolded, its sides meticulously folding to rest flat on the ground. There was a small silver machine of some sort of metal inside the box. A tiny tray was positioned in the center of the machine, and the metal was covered in layers of glass panels. Reflecting on his Federation studies, Naruto said, this looks like the replicator machine that you used to show me. As long as the object's atomic map was in the replicator's database, a replicator machine could create any object from raw materials, such as food, gold, or weapons. Naruto had seen it several times when SICA was teaching him Federation technologies. The Federation's advanced technologies had astounded Naruto, who had asked SICA if he could create something comparable. SICA's response that it was very unlikely had disappointed him. The tools and equipment needed to construct something as sophisticated as the replicator are simply absent from this planet. SICA had continued by saying that although this planet had technologies that appeared to be advanced for this planet, it was still regarded as having a medieval level of technology. There was a legend in the library's records about a great war that occurred 3,000 years ago and destroyed most of civilization, leaving behind cities covered in toxic mist. Careful explorations of those ruins, from which many of the contemporary technologies of the ninja world originated, revealed that the mist had only just started to dissipate over the previous few hundred years. Before an incident ended that golden age, SICA had calculated that Naruto's world might have had middle-level technologies. To learn more, it had recommended that Naruto explore the ruins on his own. Except for the few occasions when he was young and was driven into the forest, Naruto was never allowed to leave the village, and the closest ruins were a few weeks' drive away. Ultimately, Naruto had put it on the back burner as something to do later. You may call it a specialized replicator used only for gene manipulation. Like me, it needs solar energy to recharge its reserves once its energy is depleted. However, the static lighting technique could not be used to recharge this machine. The gene manipulator is too delicate to withstand raw electrical charges. The machine currently has 60% power, which is enough for you to use a few times before needing to recharge. SICA clarified. I'll give the gene manipulator your genetic map and the wood release marker, and it will use that information to replicate a pellet. I will be able to ease some of your pain during the process with the symbology magic engraved on me, and it's possible that your regeneration abilities will also help. The pellet is actually composed of nano-bots that have been specially programmed to change your genetic structure. You will experience a feverish state for no more than 5 hours while the gene mutation takes place, changing your body to accommodate the new gene materials. After the mutation process is complete, you will acquire the wood release ability. Naruto said, "All right, so how do I start?" As Naruto complied with its instructions and stuffed a piece of bread into the tiny drawer that opened, SICA said, "There's a yellow button, push it. A small drawer will open. Put in materials that are not too dense. They will be used as raw materials for the replication process. I am passing the gene map to the machine and begin replication." Naruto observed as white lightning crackled and illuminated the gene manipulator's tiny tray. A tiny pellet settled on the tray as the light spread. Reaching in, Naruto removed the pellet. Naruto looked at the pellet and said, "So I just eat it?" "Yes, I would suggest you do so laying on your bed. The pellet would knock you out during the gene mutation process," SICA offered. Naruto nodded before carefully lowering the gene manipulator into a cupboard and then resting it on his bed. He swallowed the pellet after dropping it in while holding it above his mouth. After experiencing vertigo, he lost all further knowledge. He awoke in a sewer, crawling among quickly spreading greenery vines. As Naruto stood up, water splattering all around him, he muttered, "What the hell happened? SICA?" No one answered. Naruto's eyes widened when he noticed that the familiar bracelet was missing from his right wrist. As he looked around him in the sewer and water, Naruto yelled, "SICA! SICA, where are you?" SICA was nowhere to be seen, save for the encroaching vines and the rock walls of the sewer. Naruto questioned bewilderedly, what could have happened? He recalled fainting after eating the pellet that was meant to give him the wood release bloodline, and then waking up here. A loud roar of pain reverberated through the damp and chilly tunnels as Naruto considered searching the sewer surrounding him once more. The sound appeared to be coming from the other end of the sewer, and Naruto flinched. Naruto felt incredibly vulnerable. Indeed, he knew a lot of D-rank and C-rank techniques, as well as a few B-rank techniques. He could probably defeat some low-level Jonin or even some Chunin in a fight. But now that he was alone with an unknown element, Naruto started to get scared. For the majority of his life, he had learned to depend on SICA to give him guidance on what to do. If he were left alone, he wasn't sure if he could make the right choices. Once more, the roar echoed like the cries of some untamed and dangerous animal. Naruto wondered if he should venture farther down the sewer to see what was happening. He surveyed his surroundings. He was clueless. Behind him was a brick wall that marked the sewer's end, and the only way out was to venture farther down and cross his fingers. As he took the first step farther into the sewer, Naruto inhaled deeply to strengthen himself. He was acutely aware of everything. He would not waste the lessons that SICA had taught him as a ninja. Naruto reached another dead end after walking for several minutes while listening to the wild beast's constant roaring, which was getting weaker by the second. This time, there was a huge cage covered in green leafy vines that were creeping up the bars. Naruto was horrified to see the battered body of a giant nine-tailed fox inside the cage. The animal was bound to the sewer floor by several large roots. Out of the cage, the fox was radiating a poisonous red chakra. However, the demonic red chakra transformed into a wave of cool green tinged with brown tendrils when they touched the vines that were crawling all over the cage's bars. Naruto was enveloped by these waves of green-brown chakra, which gave him the impression that he was in the Konoha forest and surrounded by lush, clean growth. More roots and vines sprang up from the ground around Naruto as he reveled in the soothing green brown chakra, eventually covering the entire sewer wall. The imprisoned fox's eyes opened and gave Naruto a fierce look. It hissed, You are the boy, what have you done to me? Before the green-brown chakra strengthened his defense and enabled him to match the fox's gaze, Naruto stared at it, almost backing away at the fox's murderous intent. After a moment, Naruto's gaze shifted to the fox from the paper seal on the cage door. Naruto tried to sound calm as he said, I assumed you were the Kyuubi that's supposed to be inside me. I've been wondering what you really looked like. I wasn't expecting the greatest of the tailed beasts looking like this. Naruto pointed mockingly at the roots holding it together while Kyuubi roared in rage. I am the most powerful of the tailed beast and I will find my way out of whatever you've done. Kyuubi growled. And when I escape from here, you'll be the first to be eaten by me. Naruto sniffed, trying to mask the nagging fear in the pit of his stomach, and said, Please, like that's going to scare me. Anyway, I've done nothing, except to give myself the wood-release bloodline. With its jaws agape, the fox exclaimed, The wood-release bloodline, at last. A glimpse of something resembling horror emerged in its eyes. You brat, what have you done? This time, as the Kyuubi struggled in the roots that held it captive, Naruto recoiled at its enraged roar. The vines were unable to completely purify the massive wave of red chakra that pulsed out of the cage, which resulted in some of the red chakra blending with the brown chakra. The red chakra swept over Naruto, causing him to shudder painfully, and he. In his mind, SICA said, I see you've awakened Naruto. The gene mutation was a success. You now possess the first Hokage's wood-release bloodline. Naruto opened his eyes and exclaimed, I'm back in my room. He then got up and surveyed his room to make sure he was indeed no longer in the sewer. The plants that had grown in a fan shape around his bed caused his eyes to widen. The majority appeared to be fastened to the bed and the floors. What the hell happened here? I am unsure, though it might be a side effect of your bloodline. I've also detected some abnormality during the mutation process. SICA went on. A significant portion of the energy that I have identified as the Kyuubi's chakra was released from your body in a regulated way during the mutation. However, after just 5 minutes of the mutation, the Kyuubi's chakra vanished, and I felt a new type of energy signature emanating from you that I had never experienced before. The plants then started to grow around you, which led me to believe that the wood-release bloodline transforms the Kyuubi's chakra into a new kind of chakra that permits the forced and quick growth of plants. With a mixture of amazement and horror, Naruto uttered, Then that means my dream is actually real. Dream? Inquired SICA. After describing his experience in the sewer, Naruto remarked, Yes, well, I had a dream about the Kyuubi just now. The Kyuubi was bound onto the floor by these giant roots and most of the red chakra coming out of the cage was converted into greenish-brown chakra. Analyzing data, I propose a hypothesis which might be 95% correct in light of the new information. SICA responded. What you just had was a psychic connection to Kyuubi. It seemed that the addition of the wood-release bloodline in your body might have allowed you the ability to control the chakra of the Kyuubi from this moment on. According to the data about the wood-release ability, the first Hokage was able to use that ability to successfully suppress and control the tailed beasts during the first Shinobi War. You may have gained that similar ability. Naruto exclaimed, So that means that I might be able to control the Kyuubi's chakra at will now? Maybe not right away. However, it might be wise to add learning wood release techniques into your schedule. I would also like you to create a few cloned SICAs to observe your training. With the additional computational powers of the cloned SICAs, I might be able to come up with ways for you to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra. SICA continued, The extra computational power will also enable me to come up with various strategies for ways you could put your abilities to greater use in battle. Naruto smiled. Alright, that's going to be so cool, too bad I've to go to the academy during the day now, or we'll have more time training. Actually Naruto, if I may suggest something, you might want to consider sending a clone to attend the ninja academy while you train during the day. SICA made the suggestion. To protect the clone from any physical harm, the cloned Naruto could create holographic shields using his SICA. Since the regular academy training spar is against kids who don't even have 10% of your current ninja skills, you should be safe. The holographic shields won't be able to withstand strong attacks, but they should be enough to give your clone more time to escape. With agreement, Naruto remarked, Good suggestion, SICA. Though I may not want to become the Hokage now, I do want to become strong enough so that I can protect myself and those that I care about. And when I am one day able to travel to Federation space, I'll show the Federation that though the people from my planet might be primitive, we're descended from one of the strongest races out there, the race of ninjas. In a mindless drone, SICA said, Question 9, What is the Gamma Sector? Give a rundown of the political importance of this sector. The Vendini race, the galaxy's most scientifically advanced civilization, is found in this sector of the Milky Way galaxy, which is also home to numerous neutral powers that use the Vendini as a shield. Because the region is remote from the Pangalactic Federation's capital, no active anti-Federation force uses it as a base of operations, and most importantly, it is close to the border of the Aldean Empire, the Pangalactic Federation's main adversary. Planets in this sector are able to preserve their independence, Naruto said from memory. Question 10. How does the Pangalactic Federation handles genetic manipulation? SICA went on. Pangalactic Federation takes a liberal view on genetic manipulation unlike the Vendini race. Gene manipulation of not more than 30% of the user's original gene map is allowed. Any more than that, or those that are classified as dangerous mutation are handled through government facilities. Naruto laughed. Man, that's easy. Excellent work, Naruto. That was the final question on the political science tests. I'll now show you the grades for every paper you finished, which range from HD, high distinction, to F, fail. Biology. P, pass, C in chemistry, credit, physics. D, differentiation. Math. D, difference, HD, high distinction, in astronomy. D, distinction, is the Federation trade language. Language Vendini. C, credit, history of the Federation. C, credit. Technology instruction. D, difference, HD stands for high distinction, in basic symbolism. D in political science, difference, the outcomes of your short courses are as follows. Cooking. D, differentiation, planning and invention. D, difference. Crafting with wood. C, credit, C for calligraphy, credit. Using symbology in technology. D, difference, SICA said solemnly. You can now access university-level content and the materials for the Federation Operatives Training Program. Based on your scores, I congratulate you on passing college-level exams based on the Federation subjects that you have chosen. What would you wish to look at first? I recommend picking at least 10 disciplines to focus on for this half of the year, since you could use the shadow clones to help out in your studies. Pass some of the university choices you would recommend to me, said Naruto. He stopped as he thought about the contents and descriptions of different disciplinary subjects. For the university subjects, I'll take advanced symbology, mechanical engineering, astrophysics, fine arts, economics, techno-symbology implementations and genetics. SICA asked, that's all for the university subjects? Naruto exclaimed enthusiastically, yes, show me the materials for the Federation Operatives Training Program now. SICA answered, I'm passing you the materials now. As the options passed through his mind, Naruto thought, give me basic infiltration training program, we're going to need that. Warfare and combat strategy training also seems useful, I'll take that as well. He hesitated abruptly. Wait SICA, go back to the previous selection. What is this Chi training I see here? Chi is a specialized combat training that is a mandate for all Federation personnel. Some universities also provide subjects dealing with Chi in theory. Simply put, Chi is a way of channeling your physical energy to be used in fighting. SICA clarified. Unlike Chakra, which is the manipulation of physical and spiritual energies in fighting, Chi is purely the usage of physical energies to do superhuman feats. With his eyes glimmering with anticipation at this new information, Naruto commanded, show me some of the attacks able to be done by Chi. As pictures flashed through Naruto's mind, SICA said, I will show you the recordings taken of Federation operatives in combat training. Naruto grinned broadly as he witnessed a Federation operative use his fist, which was glowing with a yellow energy, to beat his opponent to a pulp. The different craters left on the training fields indicate that his strength was significantly increased. Another agent also used the power of lightning to enhance his attacks by somehow making his training sword crackle. Alright SICA, I want in on this program as well. I think it'll help with my ninja training. Naruto made the decision. Also add in the university subject about Chi theory. Done Naruto. SICA cheerfully concurred. I'll begin creating your new schedule for this year. With your clone attending school, you'll have more than enough time for your Federation studies, ninja training and learning the techniques for your wood release bloodline. Ah yes. I hope my clone wouldn't be causing any trouble at school. I did tell it to act a bit less intelligent and speak like children our age. Naruto looked worried. The genetic divergent structure of Sasuke Uchiha has been noted as the Sharingan bloodline. Hinata Hyuga possessed the Byakugan bloodline. Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, Shoji Akamichi, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame all possessed genetic structures that is a bit different from ordinary ninjas. S0 began to drone. Even though these kids from the lower clans didn't have any of the known advanced bloodlines, I can infer with 98% accuracy that their family style ninja techniques may have altered their bodies over the generations to make them easier to use. These lesser clans' genetic structures may stabilize into a true bloodline limit after a few more generations, and their descendants may become very strong. N0 yawned listlessly. That's great. But I think all of us are too young for having children yet. Giving you the names of those students only took me 10 minutes. Lunch is still 1 more hour away. What should I do now? The Naruto clone assigned to attend classes, N0, was incredibly bored. He had not been told to read up on any particular topic today by boss, the real Naruto. Iruka-sensei was currently discussing chakra molding, which N0 was already familiar with from a long time ago. N0 let out a sigh as he observed the students around him taking careful notes. He sent a mental nudge to S0 and yawned. S0, I remembered from boss's memories that the Federation has some entertainment materials called comics, didn't they? Can you show me some of them? Naruto was thinking. S0 asked courteously, yes, which century of comic would you like to preview? Naruto inquired, how about the 19th to 20th century? Very well, I recommend one of the more popular comic of that time to you. It's called MXO, SICA responded. 20 minutes later, Iruka-sensei's voice yelled angrily, interrupting N0's focus as she perused the MX0 comics. An angry tick formed on Iruka's forehead as he roared, Naruto, have you been listening to what I am saying? What are you doing giving me that empty-headed grin for? N0 winced when he saw Iruka-sensei's irate expression and abruptly stopped perusing comic books. Perhaps he should have had S0 project a hologram over himself to create the appearance that he was paying attention in class, since this was going to be a long day. In an attempt to gauge N0's level of focus, Iruka-sensei asked a question about chakra molding techniques. N0 sighed as he gave the teacher the right response, all the while considering the trouble he would face from Iruka-sensei after class. Everyone started leaving their classroom in small groups as soon as the lunch break bell rang. The boy named Naruto was the only one who was by himself. Some of the girls in class had even made lunch friends with the bashful Hyuga heiress. Shoji scowled as he observed Naruto, who appeared to be absorbed in his own thoughts as he casually approached the swing by himself while holding his bento. For the first few weeks of school, things weren't like that. In actuality, Naruto's height and firm build for his age had made him popular with the girls in the class. Before their parents learned who their daughters were hanging out with, the class's girls had called him for lunch on a regular basis. Shoji could still picture some of the parents pulling their kids away from Naruto while sternly cautioning them against hanging around with him. All of the girls had started to avoid Naruto after the warnings had spread among the kids. With the exception of the girls from shinobi families, who still spoke to Naruto on occasion, none of them dared to get too close to him due to the other girls' warnings. As a result, despite the fact that the kids didn't actively despise Naruto, they avoided him following the parents' stern warnings. However, during the past 2 months, Shoji discovered that Naruto was a courteous but aloof individual, nothing to justify the animosity he had observed in some of the adults. Shoji had questioned his father about whether Naruto had done anything wrong and why some of the adults seemed to despise him. His father simply shook his head, stating that Naruto was held responsible for a terrible incident that occurred a long time ago. He had firmly told Shoji that if you want to be friends with someone, appearance is not important because what matters most is your friend's loyalty and heart. As Naruto and Shikamaru headed to their favorite location behind the playground, Shoji glanced back in his direction. When he finally made up his mind, he bit his lip, squared his shoulders, and moved away from a startled Shikamaru to approach Naruto, who was sitting on one of the swings. Shoji hesitantly stopped in front of Naruto and said, "Hi, Naruto, would you like to have lunch with us?" Shikamaru followed him, looking perplexed. While opening his bento, Naruto paused and blinked. After examining Shoji closely, as though assessing his sincerity, he smiled gently at him. Naruto said, "Yeah, sure. Where are you guys going?" As he started to lead the way, Shoji remarked, "Great, we normally go to the fields behind the playground for lunch." It was the beginning of a friendship that would forever alter the lives of Shoji and Shikamaru, but no one knew it at the time. When Naruto stopped his training to process his memories of the clone he had sent to school, the sun was just beginning to set just beyond the horizon. It seemed that the clone had made 2 new friends. Well, not that it matters, the adults will break up that friendship sooner or later. Naruto sighed. SICA, N0 found some comics about magic users in your entertainment database. The magic users in the comics have these magic plates that are able to cast spells by channeling magic energy, sort of like channeling chakra in a rectangle metallic plate to cast ninja techniques. Do you think it's possible for me to create ninja techniques plates based on the same concept? Referring back to the MX0 comics, I am unable to come to a conclusion at this current time. However, if you wish for me to investigate such matters, you could spare your chakra to create a few more clones which you could hide out in the forest every night. I'll then use the cloned SICAs to increase my computational capabilities as we ran various simulations based on the ninja knowledge that I've archived, to see if the creation of the ninja technique cards you've suggested is feasible. SICA offered. How about 100 clones for the night? Now that I can pull the Kyuubi's chakra and use it, I'll be able to create that many clones as well as the night infiltration team and pump enough chakra in all of them to last the night. In fact, I am thinking of expanding my infiltration operation to cover the whole village soon. Maybe gradually over a few months' time. Naruto pondered with SICA. That would be a wise decision, and regarding your large chakra reserves now, it is no surprise, according to ninja legends, the nine-tailed fox is a creature of immense malevolent chakra. Now that it's sealed in you and you are able to pull out its chakra safely, it's no wonder that your chakra reserves had increased so rapidly. SICA continued. My scans showed that your personal chakra reserves had already tripled from their previous levels. You might surpass Hokage level chakra reserves, excluding the Kyuubi's chakra, in a few years if this continues, in my opinion, as the purified chakra of the Kyuubi most likely compelled your chakra coils to grow quickly. Naruto exclaimed, wow, exceed Hokage level chakra reserves. Of course, it also meant that every time your chakra reserves increased, your chakra control will worsen until you could get used to handling this new level of energy. SICA went on dryly. I've detected you wasting double the energy usage for all your techniques these past few days, though your control is steadily getting back to what it used to be with training. Naruto sighed and grimaced. Well, I guess there'll always be give and take. Anyway, I'll begin to create those 100 clones for the night and leave them here. You can use them to run your computations while I'm asleep. I want to know if there's even a possibility that I can create a ninja technique plate. Regarding the new genetic materials we scanned today, what do you wish to do about it? Asked SICA. As Naruto started to consider the situation, he concluded, the Sharingan would be too obvious at the moment for me to use. So I'll skip that for the moment, though I'll send a clone to scan the Uchiha compound for their clan materials. I'll also send some clones to the Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Inuzuka and Aburame clans to do some scanning and get more ideas about what their techniques are about before I decide if I want to incorporate more genetic variations in me. Over the next few weeks, N0 discovered, much to his surprise, that he was hanging out with Choji and Shikamaru more and more during lunch and after school. The three of them lying on one of the hills behind the academy, watching the passing clouds, became a common sight. N0 also discovered that Shikamaru has a very sharp mind hidden behind his lazy exterior. He started teaching Shikamaru how to play a game called shogi, which they started doing on a regular basis. Shikamaru picked up the fundamentals of the tactical chess game fast, and he shocked Naruto by defeating him 5 times in their 10 games together so far. With Choji sitting next to them and munching on his chips, they started playing shogi for a large portion of their cloud watching time, which sparked a difficult friendship with Shikamaru. Additionally, Shikamaru started to focus more during the game than N0 had ever witnessed him do in class. Remarkably, the parents of Shikamaru and Choji did nothing to stop their developing friendship. Since the adult Nara had once approached N0 and invited him to play shogi at their house, it appears that Shikamaru had also mentioned N0's skill in the game. And so the three of them had started their strange friendship. Ino, a girl with blonde hair, would occasionally join them. She was apparently Choji and Shikamaru's childhood friend, although Shikamaru strongly denied this and referred to her as troublesome. The three of them would typically be alone, but eventually Choji made friends with Shino, who the class had nicknamed Insect Boy, and generally shunned, and Kiba, a boisterous, hyperactive brat who reportedly came from a clan that paired up with trained ninja dogs, even though he was reportedly still too young to have a dog as a companion. As more boys joined the group, Ino also joined them less frequently. Later on, Naruto discovered that Shino was descended from a clan that had bred a unique species of insect that consumes chakra into their bodies from birth. In exchange, he commands the insects to attack and perform other tasks. The nickname, Insect Boy, and Shino's lack of popularity were also caused by this. But Kiba, who was prone to exaggerated behavior and sporadic antics, was completely different from the cool-headed Shino. N0's hair turned pink for the remainder of the day as a result of one such prank. Naturally, the normally calm N0 lost his temper that day, which led to the prank wars and the beginning of a strong but occasionally treacherous friendship with Kiba that would last a lifetime as rivals and friends. Kiba looked at N0 and said, "I bet you couldn't do it." His eyes had a challenging gleam in them. Shikamaru asked, opening his eyes weary, "Couldn't do what?" "After school, The 5 of them had spent the last hour lying on their favorite hilltop. Between bites of his chips, Shoji helpfully interrupted to say, Kiba was saying that Naruto wouldn't be able to come up with his own ninja technique that can knock out the teachers. Shikamaru shook his head and said, "Oh, you're so troublesome, Kiba. Don't you remember the 1-week detention you got after you threw the stink bombs at Iruka and Mizuki-sensei? And just throwing stink bombs aren't really ninja techniques." Kiba proudly puffed out his chest and said, "Of course they are, my very own stink bomb technique." N0 stuck out his tongue at Kiba and said, I could do it with a real technique. Just you watch. What could distract Iruka and Mizuki-sensei anyway? Shoji said, "I don't know, they are both adults, maybe a pretty woman? Mom always says that a pretty woman is a man's downfall." Shikamaru shuddered and remarked, "Women are troublesome, especially the fierce ones." Beside him, Shino gave a silent nod of agreement. Woman N0 thought as he prepared his unique method. Iruka's perspective the following morning. Iruka entered the classroom full of enthusiasm and positive vibes. This week had gone without incident, with neither Kiba nor his accomplice Naruto pulling any ridiculous practical jokes. He had given them several detentions, and one could only hope that they had learned their lessons. Mizuki turned to the classroom and continued, Iruka, you've arrived. Iruka-sensei will now take over the Genjutsu section of the lesson. Listen carefully to his instructions. As the class waited for Mizuki to gather his belongings, Iruka asked, "Have all of you practiced the transformation technique I've shown you all yesterday?" Raising a hand, Naruto exclaimed, "I've practiced real hard, Iruka-sensei. Do you want to see it?" Well, since Naruto offered, "Very well, Naruto, come to the front and show the whole class your transformation." Iruka replied with a smile. He would later curse himself for failing to see the trap that Naruto had set for him. Mizuki gave Naruto a barely disguised glare as he was gathering his notes to leave the class, but he also stopped to observe the mess Naruto would almost certainly create for himself. After only 1 day of instruction, very few academy students ever achieve a transformation on their first attempt. Naruto paused in front of the class and turned to face Iruka, saying, "All right, Iruka-sensei, Mizuki-sensei, here's my own special transformation technique." Iruka started to feel a familiar apprehension that he was beginning to experience around Naruto and Kiba. In front of his eyes, a huge warning sign was flashing. Maybe I should pick someone else." Iruka's hasty words were interrupted by Naruto's exclamation, "Special transformation technique, sexy technique," as a cloud of smoke surrounded him. As a blonde and attractive young woman emerged from the smoke, cooing at him, Iruka watched in horrified fascination. Naruto cooed evilly at him in his transformed form, saying, "Hi Iruka-sensei. Hi Mizuki-sensei." The class erupted behind him as the girls yelled death threats at Naruto, causing chaos. "Off with his head," screamed Sakura and Ino instead. "Naruto Uzumaki," Iruka yelled, his face flushed the color of nectar. Mizuki was behind him, desperately trying to stop the blood gushing from his nose. Naruto sat down on the training field with a bowl of instant ramen and sighed wearily, "I think I am beginning to get the hang of my wood release ability." He was surrounded by a number of recently sprouted trees, and the clones that surrounded the training field stayed where they were, keeping an eye out for any Konoha ninjas that might wander this way. "I think I can master the first wood release technique in a week's." As the memories of the clone he sent to class came flooding back to him, Naruto choked on his ramen. After spending time with his friends, the clone had apparently dispelled himself. Regretfully, Iruka-sensei sentenced the clone to a week of detention after it appeared that he had engaged in some mischievous behavior during the day. Naruto grimaced as he was reminded of the transformation method the clone had developed and applied to Iruka-sensei. "What a perverted technique," he exclaimed. "And my clone just came up with this technique in the morning, with his SICA aiding him. If this goes on, my reputation's going to be totally ruined at school." SICA remarked, "You did ask that clone to act like children his age, and one of his friends is a prankster. Since your clone is but an extension of yourself, he would have inherited your competitiveness. It's no wonder he would try to exceed other students in pranks, since that's the one area where you did not instruct him to hide his talent in." Blushing at the thought of the firm, nude female body that N0 had changed into, Naruto groaned, "Yes, but did he really have to come up with that kind of ninja technique?" Naruto struggled to get rid of the memories, especially when he added in the memories of the nude pictures of different women that S0 had given him and that N0 had used as a guide. "You know SICA, apart from my clone's disaster at school, I think I would like to hang out with Shikamaru and the rest of the guys for once. Just myself, and not my clone. Their friendship seemed genuine, and I'll really like to experience companionship with people my age." SICA said, "Suggestion then. You could still have your clone attend classes but switch places with it after school to hang out with your friends. I'll adjust your timetable to fit in with your new schedule." Naruto said with gratitude, "Thank you, SICA." He was already anticipating tomorrow. "By the way, SICA, I've decided not to use the genetic material or any of the family techniques you've scanned from the Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Inazuka and Aburame clans. I know these people and they've been nice to me when so many others hated me. It'll be too much like stealing if I use their family techniques." "Understood. I'll file their genetic maps and techniques away to be only used as reference," acknowledges SICA. "I've also finished analyzing the possibility of making ninja technique plates, Naruto. Based on my possibility simulation program, if we can figure out how to turn ninja techniques into seal forms and put them on plates, then, in theory, anyone can use the technique by pressing chakra into the plate. Although the seal arrays required to transform ninja techniques such as ninjutsu or genjutsu into seal forms would undoubtedly be extremely complex, I might be able to form seal arrays using my current seal and symbology library to create the desired ninja technique if you create additional clones to give me access to the additional computational power of the cloned SICA. The upside of this is that if they are transformed into seals and engraved on the ninja techniques plate, ninjutsu that requires specific bloodline limits may be accessible to all." Naruto confirmed, "That's good. Let's make it our nightly activity then. First I'll like you to find out how to create a seal array for the shadow clone technique. For that matter, let's see if we could imprint symbology symbols on the plates as well, for others to access the symbology form of magic." During the night, SICA converted techniques into seal arrays using the clone's additional processing power. Naruto trained in the forest in the morning while his clone went to school. Then, in order to spend the afternoon with his friends, Naruto would trade places with his school clone. Naruto started hanging out with his friends on a regular basis after discovering that he enjoyed their company. Choji was the devoted and amiable type, while Shikamaru, despite his laziness, had a sharp mind for formulating plans. Shino was the quiet, steady boy of the group. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it was with more wisdom than most of his age. Conversely, Kiba is impulsive and full of energy. One day, while lying on the grass next to Choji and gazing up at the sky, Kiba said, "You know, Shikamaru and Naruto were playing shogi together. It's boring doing the same old thing every day. How about we do some training once in a while?" In between mouthfuls of chips, Choji declared, "I'm fine with it, as long as we don't do it every day." With Naruto by his side, Shino acknowledged, "It would be wise to train up our skills." He had been watching the shogi match between Naruto and Shikamaru. Shikamaru grumbled, "I'd rather look at the clouds, it's troublesome." Naruto proposed to Shikamaru, How about this? I'll play shogi with you 3 days a week and we all train for 2 days every week." Shikamaru shrugged lazily and moved his chess piece, saying, "Whatever, but can we not train today? We're still in the middle of a game." "Alright then. I'll ask my sis about which training fields to go to when I reach home today. We can go there to train tomorrow," Kiba responded with enthusiasm. The group's training sessions, which would eventually become a regular occurrence, started in the upcoming weeks. In order to help his friends learn from their mistakes, Naruto also made the decision to not conceal his actual skill during the sparring matches. For him, the harsh ninja life had been portrayed in the mission reports he had read about his parents from the administration building. If you are a ninja with little skill, you will eventually be killed in the elemental country's ninja world. Since Kiba had suggested it, Naruto was going to ensure that the group improved their ninja skills through their sparring matches and practices because, in all honesty, he had become quite attached to his friends. However, Naruto took care to avoid using any methods that were not covered in the academy's curriculum. However, everyone was completely taken aback by Naruto's ability to consistently fight everyone to a draw despite using academy-level tactics. One day, as they watched him finish the taijutsu match against Kiba in just 5 minutes, Shikamaru remarked, "You have been hiding your true ability in the academy." Given that Kiba was ranked second in all taijutsu classes behind Sasuke Uchiha, it was unthinkable that Naruto, who consistently received mediocre grades in class, would be able to routinely defeat Kiba in their after-school sparring matches. "And you hadn't been hiding your own skills?" Naruto asked, looking at Shikamaru with composure. "I know for a fact that you can most probably do better than that Sakura girl in the written tests, yet you consistently scored the 7th place instead of the 1st. Shrugging, Shikamaru said, "That's because school is troublesome for me." "Well, same here, I'll probably get into trouble if I do too well," Naruto trailed off, suddenly realizing what he had just said for the first time. "I mean it's just too troublesome to try hard anyway, passing is enough." Everyone stared at each other, and there was an awkward silence. Then Kiba yelled in interruption, Kiba challenged Naruto, saying, "Come and fight me again. I can't believe I keep getting defeated by you." Turning away, Naruto said, "That's because your taijutsu stance is sloppy. You're limiting your own reach," as he attempted to correct Kiba's errors. As they started sparring, Choji questioned, "Shikamaru, what did Naruto mean he'll get into trouble if he did too well?" Shikamaru frowned and said, "Well, hadn't you noticed how the other teachers in the academy other than Iruka and Mizuki-sensei treated him? From what I recall, the teachers from the other classes tend to give Naruto a hard time during lessons. I've even seen him get the wrong instructions from Uzuni-sensei once. I don't understand it. Naruto's a nice person, but so many adults in the village seem to dislike him." Choji grumbled. "Dad wouldn't tell me why people hate Naruto when I asked him." According to Shikamaru, perhaps it was his parents. "I doubt the fault lies with Naruto. He's too young to commit any big crimes that would make so many adults bear hatred towards him. I got the same answer from my dad when I asked him about Naruto. I think the adults are hiding something from us." Shino said abruptly from the side, "Let's not think about it. Naruto's our friend. That's enough for me." Choji looked at Shino, and his eyes grew brighter. "You're right. Just being friends is enough, and Naruto gave me a lot of pointers when I fought against him. I am going to practice now. Are you coming, Shikamaru?" Before heading out to spar with Choji, Shikamaru remarked, Yeah, this is troublesome. I hate mysteries." Shino watched in silence as Naruto defeated Kiba in combat for the second time that day while standing by himself in the field. "I wish there's some ways that I can teach Shikamaru and the others more knowledge, like the seal basics, advanced genjutsu concept and ninjutsu techniques," Naruto said. "Their small group has been practicing their academy skills until they are almost flawless for the past month. What the academy teaches is but the bare basics. They'll need more than the basics once they began fighting against enemy ninjas. According to academy standards, all of you are only 8 years old, nearing 9. The bare basics are the foundation upon which to build your skills." SICA reminded Naruto of this. "Not everyone has your large chakra reserves or me to guide them." "That's true. Maybe I should start them on chakra control exercises and chakra stretching exercises to enlarge their chakra reserves. Leaf floating and tree walking might be a good start," Naruto thought. "But I wonder how I am supposed to introduce tree walking when the academy never teaches that." The library did have books regarding tree walking, so maybe you could keep up a facade of frequently going to the library to research materials and chance upon them, SICA offered. Naruto gave a headshake. "That would take up too much time just to keep up a pretense. Isn't there any other methods?" SICA stopped to consider the circumstances. "I do have one method that would allow a bit of flexibility." Before quietly leaving through the window, the Anbu placed the scroll on the Hokage's table. Sarutobi examined the red seal wax of an eye over a leaf that sealed the scroll, and the familiar scroll used by Konoha's enigmatic informant. The informant apparently made a special seal for his scroll after learning of the Anbu's nickname for him, Eye of Konoha. Sarutobi looked at the contents of the scroll, then clenched his fist and hurried to his feet. "Hokage III, I am aware that you have been worried about the safety of the village with an unidentified informant running around, even though the information I have given you thus far is for the benefit of the village as a whole. This is not an informant scroll, but a brief note to let you know about some of my actions. You can be sure that I have no bad intentions toward the village. I was a family friend of Minato and Kushina, and I had just returned to Konoha after a long journey. After learning the truth about what had happened to my two friends, I made the decision to stay and keep a silent watch on their son. I would not reveal the child's name in case this scroll ended up in the wrong hands, but I noticed that your support for my friend's child seriously damaged your power, so I have made the decision to take action to protect the village that Minato loved and to keep the boy safe. Sadly, I am currently regarded as a missing nin, so I have decided to help the boy in other ways. I have several of Minato and Kushina's ninja techniques in my possession, and I will be leaving books and scrolls on basic chakra manipulation, ninja techniques, and other items on the boy's doorsteps to further his education. I will also be giving him higher-level ninja techniques once I judge his capability to be sufficient. I cannot reveal myself, not even to the boy, because doing so would put others in danger. I hope you will grant me this small favor of guiding my friend's child from the shadows, in exchange for all the information I would give this village, now and in the future, and when the boy is strong enough, I will pass him the notes on his family techniques, and he will only ever know that a family friend is leaving this information for him. Leave a scroll in the mouth of your rock statue carved onto the Hokage mountain, and I will check on it once a day and get in touch with you if you ever need to get in touch. With a signature, Eye of Konoha. Sarutobi felt the weight of all his years weighing down on him as he completed the scroll. This cloak and dagger business was becoming too much for him as he grew older. Sarutobi, suddenly feeling extremely exhausted, whispered wearily, a friend of Minato and Kushina. And a missing nin to boot. What should I do? As Sarutobi considered his next move, he fell heavily back on his seat. Sarutobi yelled sharply, "Hawk! A hawk!" Masked Anbu appeared before the Hokage in a matter of seconds after a shadow came in through the window. With a fierce thought, Sarutobi gave the order, "I want you to send a few men to keep watch over Naruto. Keep a lookout for any parcel left on his doorstep. Make sure the contents are not harmful to a student of Naruto's level. Keep up this patrol for the next few months. I also need you to go to Naruto's apartment right now and ask him if he had received any scrolls or books recently. Make sure the contents are not harmful to the boy." The hawk-masked Anbu bowed and then leapt out of the window, hurrying to Naruto's apartment. "Yes, Lord Hokage." N5 grinned as S5 picked up the Hokage's message while standing inconspicuously in a corner next to the Hokage tower. As S5 handed the message to the boss's SICA, N5 gave the order, "Send a message to boss at once, tell him the plan worked, and prepare for Anbu arrival." N5 smiled as he thought, trust the boss's SICA to come up with a plan like that. Now the boss would be able to receive more powerful techniques scrolls from himself and other items as well. Give or take a few more months of letting the Hokage see boss's intensive training, and there will be no need for the boss to hide any of his skills or the fact that he can create shadow clones. The original SICA did come up with a very ingenious concept that would allow the boss a lot more flexibility. S5 acknowledged. It'll make our future movement easier. But according to calculations, the boss should wait a few more months before sending himself the shadow clone technique so as not to rouse suspicions. I can't wait for the future when we clones did not have to keep hiding in the shadows, N5 concurred. Aside from those clones on infiltration missions who need to remain invisible, the future shadow clones would be able to train freely in the training fields without needing to hide once boss, officially, mastered the shadow clone technique, SICA said. As he and the other shadow clones in the Konoha area get ready for a time when they won't need to stay invisible, N5 smiled. 5 days prior, as the Uchiha clan's inner council closed the room to anyone who might be planning to spy on them from the outside, power echoed through the space. The Anbu captain of Konoha and Itachi Uchiha, the most intelligent Uchiha of his generation, kneel before the assembled council and gaze at them composedly. Itachi said calmly, apparently unfazed by the harsh, critical expressions on the council members' faces, "I assume the council has something to tell me since I was summoned in such an abrupt manner." One of the clan elders said grimly, "Yes, Itachi, you were called here for a matter of grave importance. What is your response to the question we had asked you a week ago?" Itachi glanced at his father's icy face before turning back to the elder who had just finished speaking. Calmly, Itachi noted, "Surely there must be some other way for our clan to gain back our power without revolting. Konoha is full of ninjas loyal to the third. The resulting conflict from our clan rebelling against the village would inflict grave casualties on both sides. Unless you can tell me how you are going to take over the village without so much bloodshed, I refuse to be part of the plan that might spell doom for our clan." Another council member became enraged and said, "You insolent pup, just because you're the prodigy of our clan does not mean that the clan will not take action against you." One of Itachi's blood uncles, Kairu, said in a soothing voice, "Calm down, Mozu. Itachi has a point. To him it looks like the Uchiha clan is courting its own doom. Why not let him in on our plans?" "Don't be a fool, Kairu. Until we are certain of Itachi's loyalty, our plans will only be known in the inner council." Mozu exploded. He turned to Itachi and glared at him. "I suggest you quickly make known your allegiance. Should you betray this clan secret, you and your family will be killed, even if your father is the clan leader. There are many within this clan who can always serve as the next clan head." Itachi sighed quietly and grimly, "So that's how it is," before turning to look stonily at the floor. "I really had no choice in the first place, hadn't I?" Mozu turned to Kairu and said icily, "Your answer, Itachi, and it better be the correct one." "Ah, Kairu, please enlighten me about the sentry that are guarding our dear clan head's home." While Kairu sighed, Fugaku's eyes clenched, but he remained silent. Without glancing at Itachi or Fugaku, Kairu stated, "Yoshito and Kiro are guarding the place right now. They are quite competent ninjas." Itachi stated sarcastically and without humor, "Yoshito and Kiro, two of the best assassination specialists in Konoha, are guarding my home." With a challenging gaze on Itachi, Mozu remarked, "Ah yes, we always want the best protection for the wife of our clan head and his children. Your father is mostly busy with council affairs and your mother, bless her heart, chose to specialize in medic.nin techniques instead of the more offensive ninja skills. Someone do need to protect her and your little brother. How old is he? 7, 8. The council wants the best protection for the two of them. After all, It takes an assassination expert to prevent an assassination attempt, assuming one would even take place, of course. The hidden danger was not mentioned. The increased tension in the room caused some council members to stir uneasily, but they remained silent. Before the elders selected Fugaku to be the head of the Uchiha clan, Mozu was one of the potential contenders. As is typical in the ninja world for a large clan that also happens to have a lot of powerful ninjas, the Uchiha clan was one of the few that chose the clan head position based on one's abilities rather than birthright. As a result, Mozu continued to enjoy the support of many council members and a great deal of authority over clan matters. Fugaku broke the hush by saying, "Itachi." His expression was calm and collected as he gazed at Itachi, showing no signs of emotion. This decision was not an easy one to make, but it had been agreed by the elders and the clan council that the only way for the Uchiha to gain back our power and prestige in this village is to proceed on with our plan. I was one of the council members who had agreed with the plan. Itachi looked at his father for a moment, then broke eye contact. Huh. Itachi gave a sour laugh. It seemed all along I have no say in this matter. Very well, what do you wish me to do? One of the elders said, "It's a good thing you've come to your senses. As the Anbu captain, you have the layouts and schedule for the Anbu patrols. The clan is going to need all these information if our plan is to succeed." Now only 3 days had passed since the enigmatic infiltration agent from Konoha revealed his plans to Naruto. Sarutobi had hoped for a few more days of quiet before something significant happened that needed his attention. This was not what he had anticipated. Sarutobi's thunderous eyes stared into Itachi's serene, placid gaze as he asked, "Itachi, you are telling me that the Uchiha clan council are gearing up plans to revolt and seize control of Konoha. At the same time, one of their plans of success is to assassinate all members of my clan?" "Yes, Hokage. Unfortunately, the Uchiha council was not forthcoming with their plans to me. It took me giving them the Anbu patrol schedule before they are willing to tell me that part of their scheme was to assassinate your clan during the night of their revolt." Itachi responded with a tone of regret and apology in his tone. "Hokage, I've seen the number of lives lost in the war. If my clan's plan to rebel was to succeed, the number of people who will die would be numerous." "I understand, Itachi. I know of your loyalty to Konoha," Sarutobi said somberly. "I'll need to discuss this with the village elders, and we need a way to get more information on this matter." Curious, Itachi said, "The Eye has not informed you of this?" He was told, in his capacity as captain of Anbu, that the enigmatic infiltration agent was lurking in Konoha's shadows. It seems that he is not all-knowing after all. Most probably, but there's no denying his expertise in infiltration. Sarutobi concurred. "I will send a scroll to him. Hopefully he would receive it and help us on this matter. In the meantime, Itachi, do not do anything that might raise the suspicions of your clan. You are currently Konoha's only agent that can monitor the goings-on of the Uchiha clan. And from what you've told me, the Uchiha Council is holding Mikoto and young Sasuke as leverage against you and most probably your father. I will not risk the lives of your family. Keep me informed, but also be mindful of the safety of you and your loved ones. I am sorry to have to ask this burden of you, child." Itachi abruptly looked very tired and said, "There has been enough suffering and deaths with the last ninja war and the attack of the Kyuubi. I do not wish this village to be embroiled in a power struggle between my clan and the ninjas of Konoha." One gloomy Naruto clone was directing his SICA to inform the boss of the most recent danger to Konoha outside the Hokage Tower. Naruto gulped down the eel he had prepared earlier in the day and questioned, "The Uchiha clan is planning to rebel?" The large number of young trees surrounding him indicated that he was taking a brief rest during his night training. When his Mokuton bloodline was used, everything had grown from the ground. Affirmative, Itachi Uchiha, Anbu captain of Konoha, had just reported this news to the Hokage. The Hokage is sending someone to leave a scroll to contact us even as we speak. SICA stated. The contents of the scroll state that the Hokage would be willing to give us S-ranked pay if we could infiltrate into the Uchiha compound and come up with the names of the traitors and their plans. As he hurriedly consumed his bento, Naruto wondered, how much is an S-rank pay? Depending on difficulty levels, S-rank pay can range from 1 million ryo or more, SICA said. Naruto's eyebrows went up. I can buy a lot more materials to use in my experiments with 1 million ryo. Anyway, it's just another infiltration trip. I'll just send a clone to the Uchiha compound to observe them every day starting from tonight. Understood, Naruto. However, there is an error in your calculation regarding the spying of the Uchiha clan. SICA said. The Uchiha clan compound is one of the largest in Konoha. If your clone was to be stationed right outside the compound, the 1-mile scanning radius of the clone SICA wouldn't be enough to cover the whole area. I would suggest at least 4 clones stationed at each intersection point to scan the whole compound. As he made the hand seal for the shadow clone technique, Naruto remarked, Okay, then, I'll send 4 clones over there right now. Beside him, 4 clones puffed into being. Knowing their mission, each of them nodded briefly to Naruto before racing off in the direction of the Uchiha compound. As the Naruto clones disappeared from view, their clone SICAs were already enclosing them in layers of holographic images to render them invisible. Naruto grimly remarked, "Let's hope the clones can find some information. From your description, Old Man Hokage sounds very worried, since the Uchiha are targeting him and his family. A rebellion by such a large clan against the village will affect more than the Hokage and those close to him. The resulting fallout and casualties could affect a lot of people, and the civilians might even be pulled into the struggle for dominance. SICA caution. Perhaps you might want to send more clones out to patrol the rest of the ninja clans in the village. See if any of them are in any way allied with the Uchiha clan." Naruto used the shadow clone technique as soon as possible, saying, "That's a good idea, SICA. I'll do just that before continuing with my training." There were 40 clones puffing into view. With a tone of authority, Naruto turned to face them. "You guys know what to do. Each of you stake up each of the ninja clans in Konoha. Starting today, we need to know of what goes on in each of the clans beforehand." The clones chanted, "I.AI boss," as their SICAs were cloned, rendering them all invisible. As his army of invisible clones hurried past him in an attempt to learn the secrets of the Konoha clans, Naruto felt the rush of wind all around him. With a smile on his face, Kiba crept into the empty classroom. He had pretended to need to use the restroom in order to return to class covertly while the rest of the class was practicing taijutsu in the fields. He was holding the meticulous mixture of paint bombs that he had painstakingly made for Iruka and Mizuki-sensei last night. He was looking around the classroom for the best spot to set up his prank when he heard a quiet sob, which made Kiba freeze in fear. He thought the classroom was empty, but when he looked around, he noticed a barely perceptible gray huddle at the back seat. As more sobbing echoed throughout the classroom, Kiba set the paint bombs down on the closest table and moved quietly up the back of the room. He knew who it was as he got closer. It was one of the class's quietest girls, Hinata Hyuga. Upon reflection, he realized that Hinata had been sent out of the taijutsu class after being hurt soon after it started. She was meant to go to the infirmary, so why was she back here? Kiba hesitated before asking, "Hinata?" Although he knew the Hyuga heiress by name, he was unfamiliar with her. Hinata's head immediately raised as she turned to look at Kiba, her face showing a look of surprise. Kiba. I was just resting." When Kiba saw Hinata's pale, watery eyes and flushed cheeks, he felt his heart ache and blinked. "Hinata's are adorable." Hinata hesitantly said, Kiba?" In response to Kiba's shocked look, "Are you alright?" Kiba turned to Hinata and said, Yeah, I am fine." He shook his head to clear it. "Why are you in class crying? I thought you're supposed to go to the infirmary." Hinata's mouth trembled. "It is just a leg sprain. It is my fault because I am always so weak. I just bring shame to my clan." Kiba responded, "Of course not," in an attempt to lift Hinata's spirits as her face started to fall apart. "You're one of the best taijutsu fighters among the girls. You got injured just now because you were paired up with that Sasuke Teme, didn't you? He's one of the best among the boys and he never knew how to hold back his strikes. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I heard your family had a super awesome taijutsu fighting style. I am sure if you're allowed to use that, you wouldn't lose to anyone." But, Hinata chewed her lips in a quiet protest. "Even my father thinks I am weak, because I couldn't bring myself to hurt anyone." Outraged, Kiba exclaimed, "What? His family was close, and he knew that his mother loved him even though she might occasionally be too harsh with him while he was training. Well, you're not weak, trust me, you're one of the best in our class." Kiba nodded firmly, and Hinata looked up at him with teary eyes and asked, "Really?" "In fact, Hinata, my friends and I have a study group after school where we train ourselves. Do you want to join us? It's mostly guys, but sometimes Ino joins us as well." Kiba replied. "Naruto can give you some really cool advice if you want to become stronger." "Naruto?" Hinata inquired, recalling the blonde miscreant who frequently got into awkward situations with Kiba. Kiba grinned and said, "Yeah, his grades aren't very good, but he really knows a lot of stuff. We're meeting this afternoon after class, so what do you say?" Hinata smiled slightly as she looked up into Kiba's amiable eyes. Alright. "That's great. Follow me after school today, I'll introduce you to the rest of the guys." Kiba was thrilled. "You wouldn't regret it. Now how about you and I set up a little prank?" With a startled expression, Hinata said, What? Kiba smiled mischievously. Iruka fought the urge to snarl at the two pranksters in front of him, feeling his vein pulsing on his forehead. Iruka uttered, "Kiba," with a growl beneath it. I expect you to clean up the whole classroom before you leave, without anyone's help. Hinata looked at the floor, avoiding Iruka's gaze, and muttered, Iru. Ka-sensei, I should help also. As he waved around the classroom, which was covered in hundreds of shades of bright yellow and brown, Iruka said, No Hinata, I know that Kiba's the one that dragged you into this. He will clean up the mess he created alone. He pulled a book from his bag and held it before Hinata. However, since you've also aided in the prank, you cannot go unpunished. This is a book on Advanced Academy Taijutsu style. We will be learning it next month, but I expect you to memorize the contents and show the whole class what you've learned next week. With a horrified stutter, Hinata turned her terrified gaze to Iruka and begged, Show the whole class? Can I switch the punishments with Kiba? I don't mind cleaning the classroom. Kiba exclaimed, That's a great idea, with enthusiasm. I wouldn't mind showing the class my advanced taijutsu technique. Iruka grinned evilly as she gazed at them. No, these are your punishments, as such punishments are meant to punish you, not let you do something you like. Kiba will clean the whole classroom before he can leave. Hinata can leave to prepare for her class demonstration, which will be up by next week. The two of you are dismissed. As Iruka strode to his desk and sat behind it, Hinata and Kiba gazed in dismay. Kiba sighed and picked up a bucket of water and a cloth, saying, I guess I better get started. In a quiet voice, Hinata said, I will stay with you. We did the prank together, I'll stay until you're done. Shining brightly, Kiba exclaimed, Oh Hinata, you're a real pal. Tell you what, I will bring you to the guys later. Naruto can surely help with your demonstration next week. Through their shared mental link, S3 warned N3 of a situation, causing him to pause. I've detected some possible hints of the Uchiha's rebellion plot. Do you wish me to play it to you while I record it for the boss? S3 responded. At his position leaning against the south side wall of the Uchiha compound, N3 said, Yes S3, do it. A piercing male voice boomed inside N3's head, How is the progress? The Anbu patrol plans that Itachi had provided is a great help. We were able to remain undetected while we scouted the rest of the clans. A male who was younger said. We currently have the schedule of the sentry shifts for the Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Tenchi, Asura and Hyuga clans. There has been some difficulties with discerning the patrol timings for the Inuzuka and Aburame. Their dogs and bugs are making it difficult for us to spy on them. An elderly, gravelly voice said, Good. Thank you Shisui, your team has done great work. These clans are some of those that are devotedly loyal to the Sandaime. We need to force them out of the fight during our takeover so that there would be less Uchiha casualties. Did you locate the rooms of the clan heirs? Shisui replied, Yes, here you are Elder Tezu. I've drawn out the plans of each clan compounds and marked the rooms of each of the clan heirs. Pardon me for a wild thought, but shouldn't we include the Senju clan in our plans? Surely you are joking. The currently Senju clan is a mockery of what it used to be. They will be of no threat to us. They may be known as the clan of 1,000 techniques, but much of the clan had been decimated by the past wars and the attack of the Kyuubi. That clan is now most filled with average ninjas and civilians who claimed high positions on the civilian council, a disgrace to the Shodai and Nidaime. A woman's tone was disdainful. Elder Tezu sternly remarked, Don't be hasty in your judgment Midaina. Shisui made a good point. The Senju clan was known as the clan of 1,000 techniques for a reason. They had ninjas who were experts in genjutsu, taijutsu, and ninjutsu. Although they wouldn't be useful to our current plan, some members of the clan could still defeat a group of our best ninjas and disable them without any bloodlines. We all know that they would not be pleased with the Uchiha ruling over Konoha, so we can only keep an eye on them while we come up with other solutions. Tsunade Senju is still the clan's undisputed head and heir, and since her disappearance, the Senju clan is currently run by a democratic committee. There are no clan heirs for us to kidnap and use as leverage against the clan. You might also want someone to keep an eye on that Itachi as well. He seemed a bit unstable to me, Midaina murmured. Shisui said, Itachi is loyal to the clan, without hesitation. I've known him for a long time. Another male voice asked, Yes, you have known him for a long time, don't you? Perhaps it might be wise for you to keep frequent tabs on him. As his childhood friend, he wouldn't suspect you of any ill intentions. Shisui objected, but another voice interrupted. How's Riko and your family Shisui? Midaina inquired inquisitively, her tone tinged with danger. They live near the west wall of the compound, don't they? We really should have the sentry patrol that place more often. After the services you've done for the clan, we do have a duty to keep your loved ones safe. Shisui's voice broke slightly as he said, Please, council member Midaina, my family and my betrothed need not receive any special treatment from the clan. I am loyal to the clan and will obey the orders of the elders and the council. Elder Adano remarked disapprovingly, now, Midina, Shisui's loyalty has never been in doubt. It is of poor taste to use such veiled threats. Shisui, do keep an eye on Itachi for any signs that he might turn against the clan. That child might be the greatest ninja ever produced in this clan since Madara's time, but he has always been a pacifist. I'll do that, Elder Adano. I'll promise I'll do whatever it takes to make sure Itachi stays loyal to the clan. Shisui sighed. Very well, now that matter has been settled. Shisui, try to get the sentry timings and the layout of the Inuzuka and Aburame clan compounds within the next 2 days. We need to move fast before the Sandame finds out about the clan's plan. Now, let's get on with the rest of the clan business. Shisui, you are dismissed. Get Fugaku and his group of council men to come here while you're out, will you? They are needed for the discussion of the clan business around Konoha. Elder Tezu concluded. In the meantime, the clan's revenue has been dropping since the last month, mostly due to the new shops we set up in Konoha last year. Perhaps it's time we step out of the fur business. It hasn't been doing well in this village. Could any of you suggest any other alternatives while we wait for Fugaku and the others? N3's forehead creased into a frown and he said, that's enough. S3. Record the rest of the conversation just in case. It seems that the Uchiha clan is strife with clan politics, and some members of the council are not averse to underhand tactics like threatening the lives of a ninja's family or even kidnapping of other clans' heirs to achieve what they want. The boss might have to interfere with this mess directly. S3. Perhaps it's time boss extends a branch of friendship to Sasuke Uchiha. We might need to toughen him up so that he could protect himself when the time comes. Boss's group seemed to be getting bigger. I've just received a message from boss's SICA that Hinata Hyuga had just joined boss's study group, S3 stated. Boss's study group do seem to be made up of a lot of the clan heirs that are currently targeted, aren't they? N3 wondered. I wonder if there's a way we can use that to disrupt the Uchiha's plan of revolt. Sarutobi sighed as he observed Danzo's emotionless face and the gloomy faces of his former teammates Homura and Kaharu. Surprisingly, they had remained silent when they learned of the Uchiha clan's plans to rebel against Konoha. Due to his prior contributions as the head of the now defunct Anbu faction known as the Foundation, Danzo was an honorary member of the Konoha Council, while Homura and Kaharu were members. Although he would have preferred to exclude Danzo from this meeting, Sarutobi was compelled to give in to the demands of Homura and Kaharu. Danzo thought dryly, the Uchiha clan is trying to stage a coup against Konoha. Somehow that does not surprise me. Kaharu calmly remarked, her old face furrowed into a frown. We were fortunate that out of all the Uchihas, Itachi had remained loyal to Konoha and reported this serious matter to us. Right now we have to find a way to effectively deal with this planned rebellion before it actually happens. Homura stated somberly, we need to nip it in the bud before it escalates into a full-blown conflict. Our ninja forces have only started building up in recent years after the Kyuubi attack. The loss of ninja lives if we have to end up battling the Uchiha clan is unthinkable. Konoha might not be able to get up from such a serious setback anytime soon. With a smooth injection, Sarutobi said, that's why I was considering starting some amicable talks between the Uchiha clan and Konoha. Perhaps to entice them with some position of power to satisfy their need for superiority. That is why I called the council. We need to decide what this village is willing to give the Uchiha clan in order to rebuild our peaceful ties. Danzo looked at Sarutobi with contempt and asked, are you in your right mind, Sarutobi? You've just told us that part of the Uchiha's planned coup involves mass-killing members of your clan and you still want to negotiate with them? Now is the perfect opportunity to eradicate the clan once and for all. The Uchihas are already under suspicion of being involved in the Kyuubi attack 8 years ago. With their current action, it all the more proves that they are a threat to this village. In an attempt to get Homura and Kaharu to at least consider his point of view, Sarutobi stated, not all the Uchihas are willing participants of their clan's plans. We can't pass judgment on the whole clan just because of what those in power plan to do. If I can just reach an agreement with the Uchiha clan council, perhaps this whole matter could be resolved peacefully. With a severe scowl, Danzo demanded, but do you know which Uchihas are on your side and who are not? Right now we have the element of surprise, promising us a swift victory if we act against the clan. But if you begin your peaceful negotiations within just a few weeks of the Uchiha's planned coup, they would have their guards up. And the Uchihas are very capable ninjas, they would suspect a mole in their clan, and we would lose the advantage of having Itachi observe their every move. Even if we plan to muster a military attack against them at a later date, it would be much tougher. Are you willing to lose more ninja lives just to try to establish some meaningless peace talks with them? Homura said, steadily glancing at Sarutobi, Danzo is right. This is no laughing matter. We have no guarantee that the peace negotiations will work, and if it fails, that means we have to marshal Konoha's ninja force to deal with the Uchiha assault. Casualties would be high, especially if we're dealing with the Sharingan users. But right now we've the advantage of being able to launch a sneak attack of our own. As Danzo had said, that is the more viable option for the village. But, Sarutobi said, gritting his teeth and speaking firmly, we can't just condemn even the innocent Uchihas to death or worse. If you can just give me some time. Kaharu's voice was steely as she uttered, Sarutobi, you are the Hokage. You need to put the welfare of the village first instead of trying to solve everything peacefully. There are some things in this world that needs to be met with force. Kaharu, Sarutobi said, attempting to win his former teammate over to his cause. I can't just. There was a knock on the door. Sarutobi signaled the others in the office to stop talking and looked up. After that, he made a number of hand seals as he dispelled the ninjutsu he had placed in his office to block out eavesdroppers and capture noises in the space. Sarutobi felt the ninjutsu that had encircled the room disappear, and a wave of chakra radiated from him. Sarutobi yelled, "Come in." Anbu, wearing a cat mask, entered through the open door while carrying a well-known scroll. As Sarutobi walked around his desk to personally receive the message from the Anbu, a faint hope began to stir in his heart. To be certain, Sarutobi inquired, "Is there anything else?" The cat-masked Anbu answered, "Nothing else. The eye had just dropped off this scroll via another delivery boy." "Good, return to your post and report if you have further news," Sarutobi replied. With a nod, the Anbu left the room, shutting the door behind him. Chakra gushed out of Sarutobi's hands as they flashed into multiple hand seals, once more securing the room against any ninjutsu spying techniques. As Sarutobi unrolled the scroll and his eyes widened visibly, Homura frowned and asked, "What does the scroll contain, Sarutobi? Is it from Itachi?" Distractedly, Sarutobi looked over the contents of the scroll and said, "No, not Itachi." As he handed the scroll to Homura, a grim smile curved across his face. Kaharu and Danzo leaned in to examine the scroll's contents. Kaharu started reading and gasped. Kaharu narrowed her eyes and said, "Plans of how the Uchiha plan to disable the major clans loyal to Konoha, as well as a list of Uchiha council members involved in the meeting. Who is the one that sent this scroll?" With an obvious triumph on his face, Sarutobi explained, "Once I learned what had happened, I had a powerful infiltration agent monitoring the Uchiha clan. This is what he had found within a day of receiving the mission. Just give me a few more days. I will need a few more days to see if he can list down which Uchihas are involved in the plan and which members of the clan are against it. Once we have the list, we might be able to come up with a way to deal with the Uchiha clan without wiping all of them out." Homura looked away from the scroll and sighed. Homura looked at Sarutobi and said, "Neither do I want to destroy the clan unless there is a need to. Sarutobi, do you trust this informant?" Sarutobi nodded and remarked, "Yes, he had proven himself and his own abilities at infiltration many times in my service." With a suspicious expression, Kaharu added, "And he had uncovered all this within a day. Since when do the village train an infiltration agent so skilled in the art? Infiltrating the Uchiha clan isn't an easy task, and to be able to spy on the Uchiha council without them being aware of it, is the informant another Uchiha?" "No, I mean," Sarutobi trailed off, preventing himself from stating that he was not personally acquainted with the informant. He would immediately lose his current position of authority with Homura and Kaharu if he admitted that. He is a trustworthy informant whose services have been proven time and again. There's no need to know who he is. In fact, the less who knows, the better it would be for everyone. After giving Sarutobi another tired glance, Kaharu nodded in agreement. "Very well, in light of the new information, I'd say we wait a few more days for further news before deciding on an overall plan to tackle the Uchiha problem." Kaharu concluded. "But tell your informant and Itachi to warn us at once if the clan decided to push forward their plans of turning against Konoha. At the same time, it might be best to put the Anbu on silent alert, without telling them the reason why. We'll also need to avoid taking missions that would send Jonins too far out from the village. We might need to muster all the Jonins at once if there's a surprise attack." As he rolled up the scroll and handed it back to Sarutobi, Homura remarked, "Kaharu's suggestion is sound. I am with her. I just hope this informant does not fail us." Sarutobi attempted to sound convincing when he said, "He will not." When he turned around, he saw Danzo staring at the seal on the scroll, lost in thought. The sound of the door opening roused Naruto from his sleep. He became aware that he was staring at one of his clones as he examined the intruder. Naruto glanced at his clone and said, "Why are you here? Did anything happen?" As he handed him a heavy pouch and a scroll, the clone grinned and said, "Something did happen. I didn't get SICA to send a message to you because this is something you need to see for yourself. And I asked SICA to check if the Hokage is spying on you again before coming in. Don't worry, the Anbu watching the doorsteps are distracted for the moment. The clone handed Naruto the heavy pouch and scroll, and Naruto asked dryly, you didn't do anything too outrageous, did you? Nothing too out of the ordinary. I created another clone and got it to transform into a wildcat which attacked the Anbu on watch. I entered the house while he was distracted. The replica replied with a smirk. Naruto nodded as he untied the pouch's strings and placed the scroll on one side of the tiny bed. The amount of money that filled the pouch to overflowing caused his eyes to widen. Gazing accusingly at the clone, Naruto exclaimed, "What is this? What did you do? Did you rob the bank? And tell me your clone number." The clone sniffed angrily and said, "I am N14, the clone you assigned to keep watch over the Hokage mountain. And please, I am a clone of you, you should know that we would never steal. The money in the pouch is payment for your successful completion of the Uchiha mission." The Hokage also left another scroll requiring our services to list down all those Uchihas who are involved in planning the coup. He also wants a list of the Uchihas who are against the plans of revolt. To quote the words in the scroll, he needs it done as soon as possible, and it is another S-rank mission by the way. The Hokage wrote that this new mission will have a higher pay grade. That is provided you can pass him the lists of names. Naruto paused to recover from his shock and said, "Oh, I was planning to keep a watch at the Uchiha clan compound anyway. This just gave me more incentives. SICA, do you think we should have a backup plan ready in case whatever old man Hokage and the Konoha council plan to do fails? Based on their experience in dealing with village affairs, it may be wise for us to stay out of the matter in case we disturbed whatever they are planning." SICA responded, "I can however stimulate several counter-plans to deal with the Uchiha clan in my free time. In the meantime, it might be wise to keep tabs on the clan heirs currently in your study group. Making them stronger might also give them a higher chance of survival in the event that an attack does occur. Since there's no way they could match power with the adult ninjas, dodging and hiding skills should be ingrained into them during the afternoon practice sessions." "That's a good idea. I've already set a clone each to keep watch over them. But if they were at least able to hide or survive until helps arrived in the event of an attack, that's one less thing I need to worry about." Naruto nodded. "I'll need to come up with a new training plan to use later in the afternoon. We're meeting again after school to practice, though I doubt Kiba would be enthusiastic about practicing only dodging and hiding. To successfully deal with the psyche of a human like Kiba, you need to use something to attract his interest. Perhaps if you promise to teach him a new devastating technique after he had accomplished the dodging and hiding lessons, he might be more inclined to put forth his best effort," SICA said. Naruto grinned as he hefted the money pouch in his hand and said, "That's true, the carrot and the stick method. I'll need to think of something that would capture his interest, but to be fair, I'll have to teach everyone in the group. But right now, we need to decide what to do with the money. I've been planning to buy some equipment for the study group to use for training, so I'll be getting those later. But there'll still be a lot left over." With his eyebrows wriggling, the clone in front of Naruto proposed, "Perhaps it is time to begin the plan. You know, the one that you've been planning for those past few weeks." "Ah, yes, that plan," Naruto remarked thoughtfully as he and the clone exchanged a sympathetic glance. With a sympathetic nod, the clone went on, "We do have the money now to kickstart that pet project of your own. It would be a measure of our infiltration skills." The SICA on Naruto's wrist gave his input, saying, "N14 is right. The funds that are recently acquired are more than enough to begin the operation. But you will need to forge the necessary documents first." Naruto grinned as his hand flashed into multiple hand seals, saying, "I can get started on that right away." As Naruto turned to face them, 3 clones materialized and stood next to him. "All right, you guys know what to do. Operation Alias has now began." Sarutobi passed it to Itachi, who perused the contents of the scroll. His expression was emotionless and passive as he read the minutes of the previous day's Uchiha Council meeting. When he saw that the scroll had stated that the Uchiha Council had ordered Shisui to follow his movements, his eyes didn't even dart. Looking up at Sarutobi, Itachi uttered the simple words, "Impressive. I can at least verify that the council members listed in the scroll were also present at the previous meeting when they summoned me. They were there to verify my allegiance to the clan. That part of the scroll regarding the names of the council members are true, so I've little doubt that the rest of the information written down is true as well. But I wonder how he was able to get his hand on this information. It was as though he was there in the meeting himself. The Uchiha clan might not have the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, but we're not a clan that could be infiltrated easily." In a reflective tone, Sarutobi remarked, "Perhaps he might have employed a spying ninjutsu technique that allows him to keep watch over the meeting in the distance. I do have a few such techniques of my own, but unfortunately, they prove ineffective against the Uchiha Council's chakra shields. If he does utilizes a long-distance spying technique, that would explain how he was able to gather so much information around town in such a short time. Itachi replied with unexpected clarity. But if that's the case, that means his technique is able to pass through chakra shields. Sarutobi sighed as he looked off into the distance. If that is true, then yes, his technique would have to be able to pass through the chakra shields for him to be able to spy on the Uchiha Council. I would dearly love to know that technique if it exists. Itachi frowned and said, but what's to stop him from using that technique to spy on us right now? The chakra shields utilized by the Uchiha Council is what is commonly used in the Anbu and. For Itachi, Sarutobi concluded, the Konoha Council. I know, I've thought about that. But if such is the case, there is little that we could do. Let's not worry about such matters right now. This infiltration agent seemed to have the welfare of Konoha in mind at the current moment. I think there should not be much problem if we leave this issue to be investigated at a later date. Right now, let's focus on the problem regarding your clan. You've read that they are setting Shisui to trail you? Itachi said dryly, yes, I could hardly have avoided reading that. Good, then you know that from now on, meetings between you and me, or any of the Konoha Council must be strictly limited. We do not want your clan to have any suspicions about you, Sarutobi warned. Itachi pursed his lips grimly and nodded. I know, and I have my own plans. To deal with Shisui, you need not worry, Hokage. Kiba watched with barely disguised excitement as Naruto broke down a solid log into splinters. Naruto repeatedly slammed his bare fist into the log, his hands moving in a blur in front of him. To increase their speed today, Naruto had them complete a taxing 10 laps around the training field. After Naruto promised to demonstrate a brand new technique to everyone after the run, Kiba was forced to accept the exercise. Shikamaru was also not very excited about the run, but he had started the exercise by following others. Naruto turned to face them and explained, this is called the repeating fist technique. Behind him, the log had already broken into pieces. It is a taijutsu technique that requires the user to focus physical energy into his hands and palms, allowing his palms to strike at the target multiple times. Kiba cried out with excitement, that is so cool, teach me, teach me. Taking a few thin books out of a bag next to him, Naruto said, I will, but first you need to learn how to focus your physical energy into your palm. I've copied out the ways to manipulate physical energy and the technique of the repeating fist inside the books for each of you. Take it and we can practice them during our next few training sessions. Shikamaru accepted one of the books and looked through the contents, asking, how do you know the repeating fist technique? I don't think focusing physical energy is taught at school. Kiba was already reading the contents carefully when he exclaimed, who cares? This is a new and awesome technique. Once we master it, we can show everyone at class. After Kiba's remark, Naruto said dryly, that wasn't my intent. He then turned to Shikamaru for a response. And to answer your question, this technique was left to me by a family friend. I've never met him, but he says he knew my parents, and he has been leaving books and scrolls at my doorsteps for the past few days. I thought I might as well teach you guys the technique so that we could practice together. Hinata timidly said, thank you Naruto, from the side, for sharing this technique with us. It seems very powerful. Supposedly it is very powerful. But right now I could only manage 3 consecutive palm strikes within a second, with breaks in between each of the consecutive strikes. According to the original scroll I received, masters of this technique are able to do 100 palm strikes per second to a single target, causing massive physical damage. Naruto replied with a scowling expression. I am afraid I still have a long way to go. 100 palm strikes in a second, Kiba uttered with awe, his eyes gleaming. That is awesome. Come on, let's practice this technique. Imagine everyone's faces when we show them this in class. Naruto grinned slightly as he observed Kiba behaving like his usual vivacious and gregarious self. Naruto turned to face everyone and remarked, it might be easier for you guys to absorb the knowledge if we do some on-the-spot training. But while you are all trying out the hands-on techniques in the book, Hinata, come with me, I'll get you started on that advanced taijutsu you're supposed to show the class. Hinata said, why, yes. She followed Naruto silently as they left the boys and made their way to a corner of the training field, her eyes dropping shyly. Naruto looked at the bashful girl. During the infiltration courses he had enrolled in with SICA, he had been obliged to learn how to read people's personalities. He could already tell that Hinata Hyuga was a shy but kind girl, and that if she doesn't overcome her extreme shyness quickly, it will be a crippling flaw in her ninja career. He intended to assist Hinata in overcoming it if she continued to be a member of the group. As Hinata looked up in surprise, Naruto remarked, I've memorized the contents of the advanced taijutsu scroll you showed us yesterday and have tried it out yesterday night. Like I said, the best way to learn something is to practice it. Come at me with that taijutsu technique, Hinata. It will allow you to see firsthand the pros and cons of the technique. Iruka-sensei might quiz you on these factors as well. Hinata was visibly surprised that one of the class's least exceptional students was able to memorize the scroll in a single sitting. But you've only seen the scroll that one time yesterday afternoon, she exclaimed. Naruto gave Hinata a self-assured smile and quirkled his lips, saying, "Let's just say I have a pretty good memory." Hinata felt a strange sensation wash over her, and she blushed and looked down. In front of someone she still doesn't fully know, Hinata felt secure and comforted for the first time in her life. She simply felt more dependable and trustworthy because of Naruto. Unaware of Hinata's sudden shyness, Naruto went on, "I noticed you've been holding back during the taijutsu training matches with the others yesterday. You were afraid of hurting them, weren't you?" Hinata nodded guiltily as she gave Naruto a startled look at his observance. Without looking directly into Naruto's eyes, Hinata uttered the words, I don't like to see people get hurt." Hinata nodded resignedly as Naruto said, "That can be a serious flaw in a ninja. A ninja is supposed to be a weapon for hire. You do know that, right? Hurting people will be part of the job description. How about I teach you a method to deal with this problem of yours?" Hinata looked up and asked, "A method?" As he spoke, Naruto nodded. "Yes, before we begin the taijutsu training. In fact, for all the taijutsu training in the future, I need you to imagine that you're all alone in this training field, and that you're fighting against a training dummy. Not a human, not a living thing, just something made of wood and connected by pieces of metal." In the distance, Shisui followed Itachi. He was one of the few people in Konoha who could follow Itachi without him knowing, being the renowned Shisui of the body flicker. A part of him wished he had not been given this responsibility, but he was well aware of the consequences of turning down the Uchiha clan's request. Before being summoned to the Hokage office for a brief meeting, Itachi had spent the majority of the morning in the Anbu building. The fact that the room was sealed off from both sound and entry suggests that the Hokage had a sensitive and significant matter to discuss with Itachi. Itachi was the captain of Konoha Anbu at the time, so it was not shocking. One of his responsibilities was to interact with the Hokage, but Shisui had recorded the amount of time Itachi had spent in the Hokage's office because the Uchiha elders wanted him to monitor such things. Itachi was back at the Anbu headquarters, where he had spent most of the afternoon, after leaving the Hokage office no more than 15 minutes earlier. Shisui saw Itachi leaving the Anbu building once more in the middle of the afternoon and started to follow him. Itachi chose to go to an enclosed training area that Shisui was somewhat familiar with, avoiding the majority of the busy roads. The village was known for its enormous trees, which were abundant in this specific training area. With so many hiding spots, it was also the ideal location for Shisui to pursue Itachi. Itachi pushed farther into the forest and came to a halt next to a gurgling river. Behind him, on top of one of the trees, Shisui stopped. He wondered what Itachi was doing here as he hid behind the branches. His mind was racing with ideas. Was this where Itachi was meeting someone? Did he actually betray the Uchiha clan as the elders had feared? Shisui inhaled deeply in an attempt to quiet his racing thoughts. He took a seat quietly and started keeping a silent watch on Itachi. Itachi turned to face the river and said, "This is where I first met you." His voice cut through the silence of the woods, clear and loud. Shisui froze as he looked around, wondering if Itachi was speaking to someone else who might be hiding somewhere. "You thought I was an arrogant brat then, the prodigy of the Uchiha clan, the one who would surpass the power of the Uchiha ninjas in just a few more years," Itachi continued with a sorrowful chuckle. Shisui scowled. Unless they were exceptionally well concealed, nobody appeared to be in the immediate vicinity. Has Itachi finally lost it? Itachi's voice was clear enough for Shisui to hear him say, "You challenged me to a duel here. The loser has to do what the winner says, you said." As a random idea surfaced from the recesses of Shisui's memory, he became motionless. Itachi couldn't have meant that, could he? Itachi went on, as if speaking to the air, "If I lose to you, I would have to step down from the title of the Uchiha prodigy." Shisui listened, dread beginning to well up in his stomach. "But when you lose, I demand that you become my first real friend. Do you still remember that, Shisui?" Shisui stopped. Itachi was aware of his presence. He was debating whether or not to approach Itachi, but Itachi's voice interrupted him. "You are still my best friend. I understand if you will not show yourself. I will leave something here for you. Burn it after you have read it," Itachi replied. After a few more seconds of standing by the river, he left and vanished into the woods. Shisui waited until he was certain Itachi was not nearby before jumping down the tree, softly landing on the grass, and heading for the river. In between a few rocks was a plain brown envelope. Shisui took it up and opened it to reveal the letter. On the spotless white sheet were 9 simple words. I will protect you, and your family, I swear. As Shisui read the words, a tear slipped down his cheek and he took a shuddering breath. The ashes of the letter and envelope drifted gently onto the river that flowed into Konoha as Shisui vanished moments later, accompanied by a gust of wind. At the identification registration counter, there was always a long line. It made sense because individuals who wanted to live in Konoha permanently had to register at one of the 5 counters, which were open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tori, a self-described inventor and merchant, was in line in front of the counter on the left. He looked like a young man with brown hair and a characteristic square jaw. Without a cunning expression in his eyes, it was an appearance that conveyed a certain level of reliability. The clerk at his counter yelled, "Next," as the person in front of him walked away. Tori passed the stack of identification documents to the female clerk as she shuffled towards the counter. The clerk looked through the documents and wrote, "Uriko Tori, born in Hashiyako, a farming village near the borders of Fire Country. It said here that you wish to register yourself as a merchant and inventor. You do know that Konoha charges a registration fee for those wishing to open business in the village?" Tori held up a bulging purse and said, "Yes, I've read the rules and regulations. I've prepared 50 ryo for both the identification and business registration." The clerk took the purse and counted the money inside, saying, "Good. Your papers are in order and the fee has been paid. Give me a minute to pass you the Konoha identification papers." Tori waited while the woman filled out a number of forms and then stamped the official Konoha emblem on them. The clerk smiled and handed Tori a stack of papers, saying, "Here you go. Welcome to Konoha, and I hope your new business will do well." Tori walked away after accepting the papers with relief and saying, "Thank you." The clerk behind him yelled for the next person in line. 2 older men were waiting for him as he left the administration building and entered a side alley. When he displayed his own business pass to establish a construction company, one of them inquired, "You have got your merchant pass?" As he allowed them to view the documents, Tori nodded and said, "Yes, the forged documents worked without any problems." As his hands flashed into different hand seals, the second male said, "Good, I've gotten my pass to operate as a teacher as well. It's time to report back to boss." In a matter of seconds, the 3 men, along with the documents proving their status as new Konoha residents, vanished from the alley after using the body flicker technique. As the door opened and Sume Inazuka and Shibi Aburame, the leaders of their respective clans, stepped in orderly and stood to attention in front of him, Sarutobi looked up. Sarutobi pushed the papers he had been studying to one side and put them down. Nodding, Sarutobi said, "You've arrived. Please close the door, I've some sensitive matters I need to discuss with the 2 of you." As he moved and shut the door, Shibi remarked, "Understood, Hokage-sama." A wave of chakra pulsed from Sarutobi, enclosing the room in a chakra shield, and the 2 Jonin-level ninjas froze. As she turned to face Sarutobi, Sume mumbled a heavy, "Ah, crap. This can't be a good thing. The last time I was in a room with chakra shielding was when I accepted that S-rank mission 2 years ago." Shibi walked over to stand next to Sume and said calmly, "Indeed, it's been a while since I was ordered to a meeting that needs to be heavily shielded. What did you call us here today for, Hokage-sama? Surely if it's an S-rank mission, there should be more ninjas present than the 2 of us? This is no ordinary mission, and currently, only the 2 of you will know. The risk of this information spreading is too great." Sarutobi sighed. "Listen carefully, Sume and Shibi. What I am to tell you in this room must not be revealed to others, not even of your clan members. The only things you're allowed to tell your clan members are the instructions I need the 2 of you to pass to them." Sume's expression darkened as she turned to face Satobi. "A mission that involves both our clans?" she asked. "What is this about? As the clan head of the Inazuka, I bear the right to reject any mission that would put my clan in danger." Sarutobi sighed, "I am well aware of that, Sume. I need you to increase your security in the Aburame compound this week, especially around the rooms of your main house. As for you, Sume, I need you to do the same thing, with one exception. You are to keep a covert lookout with Shibi near your compound for anyone who might be spying on your clan. Once the intruder or intruders are spotted, do nothing against them. It is a matter that needs to be done with the utmost secrecy. Make plans for how you can deliver a message to the on-duty guards, and they will need to initiate a conversation that involves a fictional lie. You don't have to repeat exactly what I say, but the conversation should emphasize that your clan recently detected a presence outside the compound for a few nights, and that they are increasing security for the upcoming weeks. You should also include a false statement that you, as the clan head, Sume, discovered that the Aburame clan had also experienced the same issue, and that the 2 clan heads will be meeting tomorrow to discuss this." "That is surprising," interrupted Shibi. The truth is the sentry bugs did detect several presences outside the clan for the past few nights, though no guards had ever found anyone when a search was conducted. Sume gave Sarutobi a stern look and remarked, "It is the same with my clan. The fake conversation you wish us to stage is most certainly not a fictional lie. The guard dogs had scented humans outside the clan compound at odd hours in the night several times for the past few days, but as with Shibi, the guards on duty could never find any trace of whoever is out there when they went out to search. I've actually planned to increase the guards on duty even if you did not call us in. You seem to have an idea what's going on, Hokage-sama. What's all this about?" Sarutobi shook his head, seemingly preoccupied, and cast a gloomy glance at Sume and Shibi. Sarutobi whispered to himself, "So the information is true," and then let out a deep sigh. Sume, looking expectantly at the Hokage, heard the sentence with her keen ears. Sarutobi's voice was loud enough for both of them to hear him say, "Very well, you two should have the right to know. What I tell you now is only for your ears only. The guards you station will have to be sworn to secrecy as well, though under no circumstances must they be told of what I am about to tell you. Is this understood?" Sume and Shibi stood to attention and said together, "Yes, Hokage-sama." With a strained voice, Sarutobi declared, "The Uchiha Council is planning to revolt and take over the village." "What?" exclaimed Sume. Her voice would most likely have been heard outside the room if it hadn't been protected. Sarutobi said, his gaze quelling, "Calm down and let me continue, Sume." Sume quickly cut herself off. "This information has come from a trustable source. The problem is we need more time to gather more information before the Uchiha Council acts. Increasing the guards at both your clans, and letting out the false information that you Sume and Shibi are meeting to discuss about perceived intrusion is a delaying tactic for the village. Since both of your clans are considered clans with a sizable ninja force, and your loyalty to Konoha is without question, the Uchihas would not dare to leave both your clans at their backs when they decided to start their coup." Unable to contain her rage, Sume's eyes narrowed and she exclaimed, "What the hell are those assholes planning to do to both our clans? First you told us to increase our guards, then you told us that the Uchiha are planning to revolt. It doesn't take a genius to realize that the Uchihas must be the ones alerting the dogs and the bugs in both our clans. Which means part of their plans involves harm to our clans in some ways. What is it? It is not just your two clans that are affected. All the clans that are loyal to the village are affected." Sarutobi sighed. "The only reason I call the both of you for this mission is that in the current time, according to my source, the only clans that the Uchihas had not managed to successfully scout are both of your clans." Shibi stated in a chilly tone, "Not scouted, that's a diplomatic word to describe what they are doing. Who then have the Uchiha spies already spied on in their pursuit to achieve what they wanted. The Uchiha are attempting to plot out the patrol timing of several clans, as well as mark out the rooms of the clan heirs. Currently, they had the patrol plans for the Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Tenchi, Asura and Hyuga clans." Sarutobi replied with a tired sigh. Sume thought angrily, "The nerve of those bastards." With a rage. "If they need to know the rooms for the clan heirs, then they must be. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Those spineless worms intend to use the children as hostages, don't they? Apparently they're not even ninjas enough to take over the village with just their men." Shibi continued to stare at Sarutobi in silence, seemingly unaffected by Sume's irate remarks. The storm of emotions that was Sume did not disturb his placid exterior. Shibi whispered, "Why weren't the rest of the clans informed? The less who knows about this matter will mean less chance of this secret spreading. If the Uchiha Council were alerted, there's a high chance that they might push forward their plans of a coup when we were least expecting it." Sarutobi stated, "Secrecy would also ensure the safety of the informant whom I've sent to gather information on the Uchihas. A lot is hanging on the information he would bring to me about their plans. I need you both to act natural as well. That means no extra guards for your clan heirs that might alarm the Uchiha Council. Treason from the Uchiha clan is not something we can take lightly, as the village council had stated to me. This is a serious matter, especially with the force they could muster to counter us. We would need the element of surprise if we are to put an end to what they are planning with as little bloodshed as possible." Shibi nodded coolly and said, "I understand what you mean, Hokage-sama. I'll follow your instructions." Sume gritted her teeth and turned to face the head of the Aburame clan. "I don't like it, but I will follow your orders. There's one thing though. Shibi, would you mind setting one of your bugs on Hana and Kiba at all times?" she asked. "Your bugs are inconspicuous, and since I can't suddenly send one of the guard dogs to watch over them, I am hoping you might be willingly to tag my daughter and son so that we can know where they are, in case something happens to them." Shibi agreed, saying, "I can do that for you, Sume, especially since I'll be doing the same for my son as well." Good, I've told you the roles both your clans will play in delaying the Uchiha's council's plans. But be prepared. I might need to call upon you both and the rest of the clans next time round when we stage our counterattack. Sarutobi issued a cautionary message. The chakra shields would be released when his hands flashed into the hand seals. You are released. Sume said grimly, oh, I can't wait until that happens. She stalked out of the room, with Shibi trailing behind her at a slower pace. With confidence that they would carry out the mission he had assigned them, Sarutobi watched the two of them leave the room. Naruto groaned as he twisted awake to the sound of a whirling bird. He rubbed his drowsy eyes and surveyed the training area, which had changed from the clearing it had been the night before to a dense forest. Naruto had arranged his belongings neatly close to him and slept beneath one of the tall trees that had just sprouted. He was too exhausted to go back to his small apartment after spending the night in the field practicing his wood release techniques once more. Since he could access the Kyuubi's chakra at any time, he theoretically had limitless chakra now. His own chakra reserves, which were expanding quickly, were not included in this. Shortly after receiving the wood release bloodline, Naruto discovered that he could safely extract the Kyuubi's chakra and transform it into a wood element chakra. He had the option to draw more chakra from the Kyuubi if his own chakra supplies were depleted during training. He had learned at the start of his rigorous training that a physical limitation was the thing preventing him from doing that continuously. His chakra coils could only withstand so much strain before they were harmed by prolonged training, despite the fact that he had almost infinite power thanks to the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto recalled the first time he overworked his chakra coils with a wry smile. He had attempted to go on a training binge shortly after gaining the wood release bloodline. Initially, he had believed that there was no risk of him running out of chakra for all the techniques he wanted to learn and try. But soon after the lengthy training session, he learned a depressing truth about the human body. Naruto had fallen to the ground in excruciating pain following 3 hours of intense chakra focused ninjutsu training. After 2 hours of lying there in agony, he was unable to use any technique and ended up resting all day. If he attempted to control even a small amount of chakra, he would immediately pass out from pain. After extensive examination and scanning of Naruto's body, SICA eventually disclosed that his chakra coils had been harmed by hours of excessive chakra manipulation. He had been fortunate that his chakra coils would mend after a day's rest and that the damage had not been irreversible. SICA claimed that no Konoha ninja had ever experienced this minor incident before, since no ninja could have enough chakra to perform so many chakra intensive techniques for several hours at a time. This fact was made true, since he could burn out his chakra coils from using his infinite chakra reserves. Naruto had later found it ironic that other ninjas would perish from chakra exhaustion while he would perish from damage to his chakra coils. As it felt its host waking up, SICA wrote in Naruto's mind, the sentry clones report that no one had been near this area while you rested. The clone stationed at your apartment sends a word of caution that he would dispel within another hour, and asked for you to return as soon as possible. On that note, all of your night clones would dispel within the hour as well. It is almost time to create your day clones. Naruto pulled out a water bottle and drank from it to relieve his thirst, saying, Arg, what a pain. It's not as if I don't have enough chakra to spare. It's just that sometimes I wish they could last longer, like a few days, without me constantly renewing them. It could certainly spare me the every 12-hour headaches when their memories are dumped into me, though now that I think about it, I would probably get a more terrible headache if they last longer. I could compute ways to make your shadow clones last longer if that's your wish, SICA said. But I would advise against creating more clones for extra assignments. From my scans of your body, you are just barely holding up against the mental pressure of having the memories and mental stress of 100 over clones dispelling every night and day. More clones might cause your body to collapse from too much mental stress. The subsequent damage which you might suffer is out of my calculations. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, Great. I seem to end up with weird conditions that no ninjas would ever suffer from. According to my calculations and survey of the people of this world, it is possible that there is only a 5.89% chance of ninjas who can create 100 over clones lasting for half a day. This calculation takes into account that they will also be able to survive the mental stress and exhaustion when the clones dispel at once. SICA provided helpful information. You are in theory not alone in your affliction. Even though Naruto knew SICA didn't understand sarcasm, he said dryly, Thank you SICA. That information just makes me feel a lot better about myself. In short, we'll just have to stick to the 100 over clones that I am creating every day and night for patrol, training and computation duties. Now that we are talking about computation duties, what research projects do we currently have on hand? As SICA continued to narrate, a holographic image of a word list materialized in front of Naruto. SICA stated, I will list out the project lineups as well as the computation costs they will take up every night. Building arrays of ninjutsu seals for 1. Shadow clone technique, 70% estimated complete, 50% computation. Making simple seal arrays for symbology for 1. Heal, 2% estimated complete, 10% computation. 2. Firebolt, 3% estimated complete, 10% computation. 3. Antidote, 10% calculation, 2% total estimated. 4. Ice needle, 10% calculation, 3% total estimated. 5. Silence, 10% calculation, 2% considered finished. Naruto said, embarrassed, "Wow, I didn't realize you were doing so much every night." He scratched his head. "You've previously given me instructions to create seal arrays for the shadow clone technique as well as research ways to creating symbology seal arrays. Since your instructions into creating symbology seal arrays were vague, I've taken initiative and started research on 5 of the basic symbology techniques," SICA stated. Naruto looked self-consciously at his arm and shoulder, where he had inscribed the 3 symbology symbols, and remarked, "I see you've listed heal, firebolt, and antidote as one of the research items. I've already got the 3 of them on my body, though I seldom have to use them. The firebolt I create when I channel chakra through the firebolt symbol always end up less impressive than a simple wood release technique, most probably due to my lack of fire affinity. I never had the chance to heal any flesh wounds or detoxify any poison either, seeing that I could regenerate on my own. It is regrettable that you were able to access only these 3 basic symbols through the imprint process on your body." SICA responded, "But unfortunately, Federation symbology was originally created for humanoids with certain genetic structures. Only 9% of total Federation symbology users are able to access the full symbology techniques in Federation library by imprinting them onto their bodies. The remaining 91% were only able to access certain symbology symbols through the imprinting process. There's no need to be discouraged by this fact, Naruto. Well, I don't really regret it since my wood release bloodline is currently way cooler than the symbology techniques." Naruto grinned. "But I am interested to find you researching the ice needle and silence symbology techniques. These 2 are part of the basic symbology techniques I am not compatible with. Does that mean if you are able to create a seal array for them, I might be able to use them simply through the seal array?" According to SICA, "Yes, Naruto. You've now seen the current research log. Would you like to suggest any adjustments to make room for research into creating longer-lasting shadow clones and reducing the mental stress when they dispel?" "Oh, okay. Well, how about reducing the computation power for shadow clone seal array to 20%, since it is almost complete?" Naruto offered the idea. The 2 new research topics can have 15% of the freed-up computation powers each. SICA answered, "It shall be done." With a familiar hand seal, Naruto remarked, "Now I just have to create the new clones for the day shift. Inform the clones on duty to dispel once their replacement reach them, will you?" After a brief silence, SICA answered, "I've informed the clone SICAs, they will be passing the message to the Naruto clones." As 100 clones surrounded him, Naruto uttered the words, "Good." On what little ground there was, a few of the clones were standing. In the training area, however, the majority of the clones were gathered on the branches of the numerous trees. "All right, get moving guys before you break the branches." The clones yelled, "Yes boss," in unison, so loud that Naruto was deafened. As they glinted out of sight, Naruto muttered amiably, "Cheeky bastards." The holographic invisibility cloak was placed over their bodies by their clone SICA. Their departure was indicated by a strong wind gust, which made Naruto use his chakra to get to his feet in order to stay upright. Okay. A note for next time. 100 over clones using the body flicker technique at once is not a good thing for those staying behind. SICA answered, "It has been noted." With frustration, Naruto uttered, "I don't mean you, SICA. I was just talking to never mind." Sometimes SICA was just too literal for its own good, Naruto sighed. Moving quickly, he jumped through the trees on his way back to Konoha. Many tasks remained for him to complete today. Watching the other boys spar with one another, Hinata rubbed her aching muscles. In addition to the extra training Naruto had given them, they had been practicing sparring every day for the 3 days since she joined the group. It seems that since she arrived, the small group has grown to include enough people for everyone to be paired with someone. Shoji, her current partner, was currently searching his school bag for food. While Naruto trained Hinata in the advanced taijutsu style she would soon demonstrate to the entire class, the 2 of them waited for the group spar to conclude so that the boys could practice the repeating fist technique together. The speed at which Hinata was learning this new taijutsu technique and the thorough instructions Naruto had been providing her had taken her by surprise. By using the visualization technique Naruto had been teaching her, she had also become increasingly at ease sparring with the group's male members. Hinata had attempted to concentrate on the mental image that she was battling a dummy rather than a living being during the previous 3 days when she had been paired with Naruto, Shikamaru, Shino, or Choji. She had to adjust the dummy's fatness in her mind to make it more realistic when she faced Choji, of course, but aside from that, sparring against other people was becoming easier and easier for her. This technique was dubbed visualization desensitizing by Naruto. Something about forcing her to gradually lose her sensitivity to the idea of fighting someone else and using her own imagination to divert her attention from her own anxieties and fears. Though Hinata had assumed the blonde boy was just another typical student in the class, she could not help but admire him. She could relate to him being the underdog or being viewed by others as less than who he truly is because she had witnessed the persecution he had endured at the hands of some of his classmates' parents and other adults. She had, after all, experienced the same kind of animosity from the Hyuga elders in the clan house. As Shino, his sparring partner, got up from the ground for the 10th time in the last 15 minutes, Naruto declared, "Okay, we're done. Remember what I said to you, Shino. You're slower to guard your left from attack. You need to remedy that or your opponents could blindside you. After the 10th time you dropped me to the ground," Shino said somewhat dryly, "I think the fact was drummed into my body. I'll work on it later." Naruto looked at everyone and said, "Good." He smiled kindly. "Let's rest for a few minutes before we carry our own individual training together. Hinata, you seem to have rested enough. Are you ready to start the next round? I'll like to see how much improvements you've made to your advanced taijutsu stance over the night." As she approached him, Hinata blushed slightly and said, "Why, yes, I'm ready." She felt as though she was enjoying herself while sparring with the boys, rather than seeing it as a chore. As she silently vowed to herself that she would make Naruto and the boys proud by demonstrating to her class a perfect demonstration of the new taijutsu technique Iruka-sensei wanted her to learn, Hinata followed Naruto with a soft smile on her face. She suddenly realized that her life did not appear to be as horrible as she had thought. As dusk approached, 2 figures sat quietly on the branches close to Training Ground 7, one of the Genin's training grounds. Their focus was on the nearby plot of land, which until 2 days ago was part of the village, rather than the training ground itself. "That's definitely not something you see every day." The Hawk, masked Anbu said. "There's only the framework for the small house when I came through this area in the morning, and now they've already gotten the half the walls built." Dryly, the bear mask Anbu stated, "I was on patrol duty last night and half the framework hadn't been set yet. I've never seen civilian builders construct something so fast before without any ninjutsu techniques. Who was the one that bought the land anyway? If I recall correctly, I think the report states a Masaru Inikawa had bought the land. Apparently he's a master builder of some sort, and only recently settled down in Konoha. I remembered skimming through the reports which says he had registered to set up a building company. I guess those are his men working below. It's quite a feat to gather such a large number of workers within a few days of his business registration," Hawk responded. "And all of them are not just simple bricklayers if the speed and skills they're building the house with is a guide." Bear replied with skepticism. "It's strange why a builder of a building company would buy a land so far away from the village." Hawk said, "Perhaps he likes nature. Or it could be because the land in the outbound areas of Konoha are cheaper than the ones within the village itself. Not a lot of people like to live in the wild, not to mention land prices near training grounds are notoriously cheap. Though there's also the fact that few people actually buy said land and live on it, well other than crazy Oronu who lives near training ground 41. The bear complained, "Ah, that old grouch. Well, I think we've better leave a note after our patrol, just to inform the other patrol squads to keep a lookout for this Masaru and what he planned to do on his new land." As they disappeared, heading for their next patrol point, Hawk remarked, "That's fine with me, a little cautiousness never hurt." A few seconds after the Anbu left, the construction crew collectively glanced up at the spot where the 2 Anbu had been standing. The man now known as Masaru, a middle-aged man with red hair and a rough beard, grumbled to his men, "Ah, crap. I did tell boss to let things run more slowly, but he gave me such a tight schedule. Well, no use crying over spilt milk now. Alright men, Anbu guys are gone, let's do the real building." With a chorus of agreement, the clones cast multiple hand seals simultaneously using different ninjutsu techniques. To construct the other side of the walls, a trench was dug into the ground. A few of the clones quickly produced smooth wooden planks, which others then carried to the house's framework and hammered into place to form the walls. Masaru exclaimed with satisfaction, "Now this is what I call real building in process. SICA, pass a message to boss will you? Let him know that the Anbu may be on to us and it's most certainly not my fault. Oh yeah, add in the words, 'I tell you so,' with the exclamation marks." As it conveyed the somewhat juvenile message to their boss, SICA said sarcastically, "It shall be done." One of the Uchiha ninjas reported, "Observations at the Hokage Tower reveal nothing of relevance. There does not seem to be any high alert as would be the case if the Hokage was on to us." With a satisfied tone, Elder Taizu remarked, "Good, good, one can only hope that things would stay that way until our plans are executed. Shisui, what have you to report?" To the assembled members of the Uchiha Council, one of the masked ninjas advanced and bowed. Surveillance of Itachi for the past few days revealed that Itachi seemed to remain loyal to the clan. Apart from official Anbu business, Itachi never seek out the Hokage outside of duties. According to Shisui. However, a more worrying issue has arisen. The Aburame and the Inuzuka clans seem to be aware of the fact that someone is spying on them. They had tightened security around their compounds, and apparently the clan heads are going to meet each other to discuss the matter. Elder Adano grimly said, "I see. The Aburame and the Inuzuka clans have too large a ninja force to just ignore in our plans. I would suggest we stop surveillance on both clans for the current moment and resume again after a few days, to let them lower their guards. What are your opinions?" As Elder Adano turned to face the assembled council members, Mozu responded, "I am agreeable to it. Especially since it seems we have time and Itachi did not betray us." A few other council members nodded in agreement, saying, "So am I." Elder Adano gave Shisui a scroll and said, "Then Shisui, have your men lay low for the current moment. We have another task for you. In the scrolls are the names of the council members who currently opposed us. We are aware of the persuasive effect of your Sharingan. Try to make them see the light of day by agreeing with our plans. It would certainly make a stronger statement if the Uchiha council members were united in our decision when we reveal our course of action to the whole clan. If however you do not manage to persuade them, give Yoshido their names, he will take care of them." Elder Adano's icy voice made Shisui shudder a little, then he gripped the scroll and nodded quickly. With a mask of emotionlessness covering his face, Shisui answered, "It shall be done." One of the Anbu on duty intervened with a scroll that looked familiar, and Sarutobi froze. He had been worrying about whether this enigmatic ninja would be able to complete his request for nearly a week after sending the Eye the updated mission parameters. Apparently the scroll that had arrived would hold the answer. "A new delivery boy just dropped this off at your home," said the bear. "Masked Anbu, Cad just passed me the scroll." Sarutobi said, "Good." He accepted the scroll with a mixture of relief and fear for what he might discover. Sarutobi broke the seal quickly and opened the scroll, gasping in surprise at the comprehensive list of all the members of the Uchiha Council, Ninja Force, and civilians. He even recognized the names of a few recently born Uchiha children. They were listed with the words, "Innocent," beside their names. Evidently the Eye had a sense of humor, as Sarutobi snorted. Members that are with the Uchiha's plan, members that do not know about the plan, and members that are against the Uchiha's plan, were the three categories using which the names were grouped. Remarkably, the number of people who opposed the plans or had no knowledge of them was significantly larger than the number of people who supported them. The scroll also contained detailed descriptions of the plans that some of the elders or council members had devised and the directives that they had given. Sarutobi felt a wave of relief pass over him for a moment. Now he knew what to do with the scroll and its details. With the burden of his office bearing down on him, Sarutobi said grimly, "Bear. Get the rest of the Konoha council members. Alert the Anbu after that. Tell them the emergency plan is set into motion. We're striking tomorrow night." Excited murmurs filled the morning air. Outside the former firehouse building, a long line of Konoha residents who were less wealthy gathered. A group of painters had been painting the old brick house white for the past few days after the building had been purchased by an unidentified individual. Soon after, a big sign that said, "Free food, free education," was placed outside the former firehouse. The building's less affluent neighborhood was then traversed by a group of young boys who shouted that free food was available as long as people sat inside the old firehouse and listened to whatever education lessons were being taught at the time. Although many were skeptical of this new radical concept, an increasing number of homeless people were waiting in line outside the building every day in the morning, afternoon, and evening to receive their fair share of the free food. There were new food menus and educational subjects every day. In addition to a 15-minute lecture on health and nutrition, today's meal consisted of carrot soup and bread. The man who was only known as the teacher would periodically repeat the lecture. The teacher appeared to be a gentle middle-aged man with soft brown eyes and graying hair. It has been suggested that he paid for the daily free meals in order to entice people to attend his brief lectures. The notion that another weird one had made the district of the poor their home had been mocked by some of the older people. However, practically everyone relished the straightforward yet delectable meals prepared by the school's chef, whom nobody had ever seen. As the group of young boys at the school's entrance ladled up an apparently endless supply of wooden bowls filled with carrot soup, a long line of Konoha's less fortunate people waited outside the building for their turn. After that, they were led inside the school building to eat and listen to the lecture that was still going on. Out of earshot of the people waiting in line for food, one of the serving boys said quietly, "There are more and more people queuing up every day. Boss is going to have to enlarge the building soon if this goes on. Though his idea is ingenious, isn't it?" The second serving boy nodded smugly and said, "Yeah, trust boss to find a loophole in the Pangalactic Federation's undeveloped planet pact. The pact only stops boss from not revealing information that's above the current technological level of the planet. It doesn't stop boss from teaching people about things or technologies that they have access to, or can build on their own given enough time and resources. Well, I guess it is a good idea to teach people, but if the free food promotion keeps up, boss's money is going to be eaten dry within the month. We might be able to rapid grow vegetables to enormous sizes with the wood chakra, but stuff like bread rolls and soup base we have to buy from stores." The first child responded by shaking his forehead. "Let's hope the merchant clone is able to do his job and churn out the finances we would need. Hopefully boss's new S-rank mission pay would arrive soon as well. That can at least tide us over another 2 months. Oh dear, the pot's going to be empty soon. Number 2, you've better get a new pot of carrot soup from the kitchen while I ask the gate clones to slow down those in queue." Number 2 sulked as he hurried off in the direction of the kitchen, saying, "That makes it the 3rd time this morning." Before relaying the message to the gate clones, serving boy number 1 finishes the last 3 bowls of carrot soup from the pot. Number 1 handed the bowls of soup to 3 people, who were then allowed to pass through the barricade. Then he sat down to wait for number 2 to return. Number 1 sat down wearily on a wooden stool and pondered, "I wonder what boss is doing right now. Probably preparing for tonight, no doubt. Tonight might probably be the first time boss would have to enter actual combat. I hope everything goes well." Maybe he was getting old, or maybe it was the nerves from tonight's impending battle. But Sarutobi had woken up groggy from just 3 hours of sleep in his office. Before taking a sip, Sarutobi gave the cold coffee a suspicious glance. He had to be on the lookout for tonight's happenings. After all, he hadn't been in a fight of any kind in a very long time. In fact, he had been softening over the years, if he was honest with himself. Sarutobi picked up the mission plans for tonight and carefully reviewed them again. He and the Konoha council members had been up all night calling the Anbu and a group of reliable Jonins from different clans into order and telling them what the Uchihas had been plotting behind their backs. What the elders of the Uchiha clan intended to do to their clan heirs had especially infuriated Sume, Inuzuka and Hiyashi Hyuga. In a rare display of emotion, Hiyashi had become pale with anger upon learning of the Uchiha's intentions for Hanabi and his daughter Hinata. Although Sarutobi had preferred not to include the head of the Hyuga clan, he was one of the few reliable ninjas in the clan, and the council members had demanded that some Hyuga be included in the strike mission to make sure that no betraying Uchiha could escape. To deliver a swift retribution to the Uchihas, Sume and Hiyashi had both adamantly insisted that the village's counterattack strategy include ninjas from their entire clan. But when Sarutobi disclosed all of the data the infiltration agent had obtained from the Uchiha clan, they were silenced. The information indicates that over half of the Uchiha clan was unaware of the scheme their elders had devised to seize control of Konoha. The Anbu captain had remained silent, but Sarutobi had noticed Itachi raise an eyebrow in surprise at the detailed information the unidentified infiltrator had gathered. Additionally, Sarutobi had not wasted any time in identifying the Uchihas who had opposed the plan, some of whom had already been killed for defying the elders of the Uchiha clan. Sarutobi had to use quick talk to persuade the assembled ninjas that the majority of the Uchiha clan members were innocent and that their goal was to capture those responsible for the scheme rather than launch a full-scale attack on the Uchiha clan. The intention was to expose the elders of the Uchiha clan's cunning to the ninjas and regular citizens. Additionally, the mission was classified as an S-rank mission, meaning that no one, not even members of their own clan, was allowed to discuss the actual events with anyone outside the mission. Sarutobi wanted the Uchiha clan to have a new beginning and prevent the other clans from developing prejudices against them because of what their elders had nearly done, should they be able to capture those behind the plot to seize Konoha. Since he was aware that he could not conceal the entire incident, the entire village would be told that the captured Uchihas were responsible for the rebellion's plans and that the other clan members were not responsible for the actions. He could at least ensure that the other members of Uchiha would not be condemned in this way. Naturally, the heads of the Inuzuka, Aburame, and Hyuga clans, as well as a sizable number of their clan members participating in this mission, would be aware of the Uchiha elders' true plans for their uprising. The Uchiha clan would likely face difficulties in their future interactions with these 3 powerful clans, even if they underwent positive change. Sarutobi's sleep was interrupted when a cat-faced Anbu materialized in front of him, casting a shadow across his window. Sarutobi looked at the Anbu and instantly straightened. According to his recollection, this Anbu was a member of the group tasked with keeping an eye on Naruto. Sarutobi pondered whether Naruto was in danger, and his heart began to race. Sarutobi jumped right to the question, demanding, "What's wrong?" The cat-masked Anbu held out a small oil-skinned package to Sarutobi and said, "A package arrived for Uzumaki Naruto, sir. As per your instructions, we always looked through his mail in order to ensure there's nothing harmful to him sent by either the Eye or anyone else. This particular package was sent by the Eye, and the contents are a bit astonishing." Sarutobi unwrapped the parcel. He was initially drawn to a Konoha land deed that identified a man named Uzumaki Naruto as the owner of a piece of property close to Training Ground 7. The land was previously owned by Masaru Inikawa, who gave it to Naruto. On top of the deed, there was a larger bronze key and a smaller iron key. Sarutobi's eyes widened as he quickly unrolled the second scroll in the package and saw that it was a letter from the Eye to Naruto. Sarutobi glanced at the Eye's emblem for a moment before reading the scroll. To Naruto, "I'm an old friend of your parents, and I can tell you've been studying the scrolls one sent you with diligence. You're developing into a formidable ninja. Your parents were excellent ninjas, and I am so happy that you are following in their footsteps. They would have been proud of you. I've arranged for a third party to purchase a plot of land for you in order to congratulate you on reaching the next training milestone and to ensure that your skills continue to improve. The land has a small house with a kitchen, a room, and a bathing house. The kitchen and room are the same size as your current apartment, but the bathing house can accommodate 10 people at a time. An automated plumbing system has been installed, connecting it to an underground spring, so you don't need to draw water from outside sources to run the baths. A large portion of the land is devoted to a training field, which is replete with obstacles and traps. The traps are linked to a control panel at the training field's entrance, and simply pressing the red button on the panel would reset the traps. Since you are currently a member of a training group, I have made accommodations for your friends, so you are free to invite them to the training field as you like. After all, that land and all of its structures are now yours. I've included his address at the end of the scroll. Don't worry about the automated trap system. If any of them are broken, simply send a message to Masaru, the builder, who has the plans I gave him to construct the training field. I'll be billed directly for any repairs. To protect your privacy, the entire property is enclosed by a wall of wood pillars. There is a camouflaged back gate that leads out of the training field and a large entrance gate that leads straight to the house. I expect you to make the most of this gift, whether you decide to use your new land for training or as a permanent residence. The land and the buildings are not inexpensive, so don't waste my time. Although I expect you to become a great ninja, it is good if you wish to take up other hobbies as well. For example, knowing how to grow herbs could save your life on a real mission one day. I have also told Masaru to set up a small pond where you can grow fish if you want to, as well as to leave a small area of the land behind the house for any vegetables or herbs you might wish to grow. The package should contain 2 keys. The bronze key opens the back gates and the iron key opens the door to your new home. Good luck, Naruto, and make good use of this gift. Regards, a friend of the family. Sarutobi read the message again to make sure he had not missed anything, and there was a moment of stunned silence. After carefully placing the scroll on his table, he turned to face the Anbu. With a voice that sounded like forged steel, Sarutobi said carefully, "Get a team ready. I want you to go to this land deeded to Naruto. Make sure all of the structures, especially the training field, are safe for a group of 8-year-old children to use. I want to trust the Eye, but he's an unknown agent operating in Konoha. We need to be careful about his intentions towards Naruto." The cat-masked Anbu nodded and said, "Yes, Hokage-sama. Send a message to Itachi. Tell him to bring this Masaru Inikawa character in for questioning after tonight's mission." Sarutobi went on. "This builder might be our lead to finding out the identity of the Eye. Once the structures of the land have been checked and proven safe for children's usage, report back to me and return this package to Naruto. Is that clear?" The Anbu answered, "Yes, Hokage-sama. I'll get right to it." Before he vanished, leaving a tiny dust cloud behind him, his hands flashed into a series of hand seals. Gazing down at the package on his desk, Sarutobi sighed. I hope the Eye didn't have any more surprises planned for today's exhausted Hokage. The fact that tonight's mission was directed against Konoha's own ninjas, who had become too ambitious for the village's benefit, was enough to depress Sarutobi. He never thought Konoha's ninja corps would experience this. Sarutobi, of course, was not oblivious to reality. Not when political opportunists like Danzo and a few other civilian council members from Konoha lurk in the background, trying to use shadow deals to gain more control of the village. The mission is still half a day away from starting. Sarutobi fell back to sleep, closing his eyes. After all, this elderly man needs his energy for tonight's activities, so perhaps a little nap would be in order. 4 hours after sunrise, mildly irritated, Yoshito and Kiro Uchihas stood in the Konoha mission room. Near the end of the day, the Hokage ordered them and a few other Uchiha ninjas to the mission halls for a crucial S-rank mission. Itachi and a few others she knew were not part of the inner council plans were among the majority of the high-ranking Uchiha ninjas present. Clan members were slowly entering the room and mixing with the group of Uchiha ninjas who had come on schedule. As she stood next to Kiro and Yoshito, Sume of the Inuzuka clan asked with a warm smile, "Do you know what this mission is about?" Her two big dogs were sniffing Yoshito curiously. Yoshito did everything he could to avoid hitting the dogs. However, she had orders. Uchiha ninjas are not allowed to draw attention to themselves until the elders' ambitious plans are put into action. With gritted teeth, Yoshito grinned and said, "I am not sure. It does not concern me anyway. I've applied for leave from missions for this month." Apparently the Hokage must have forgotten. "I'll need to remind him later." Sume exclaims, "Oh, that's right," as she looks at Yoshito in astonishment. "I remembered looking through the Jonin schedules a week ago. Quite a number of the Uchiha Jonins had applied for a month's leave. I had been worried that it would mean more work for the rest of us. Is there any special event happening in the clan?" Kiro gave Sume a charming smile and said, "Ah yes, a few of the Uchiha families are planning to pay a visit to the fire capital. That's why a bunch of us had taken mission leaves. In fact, we're leaving Konoha next week. I am not sure why the Hokage called us here. I saw a few fellow Uchihas who are supposed to be on mission leaves in this room as well." Sume turned to Kiro and exclaimed, "Really? A visit to the fire capital? That must be quite a large outing, not to mention expensive travel expenses. I've been there a few times, let me tell you, the trip was worth it. Let's hope that the Hokage does not invoke Code Red for this mission. You know, once he does that, your mission leaves would need to be forfeited and postponed to other dates." With a grimace, Yoshito uttered, "Let's hope not. I am hoping that the Hokage made a mistake calling us here." Yoshito swayed, feeling dizzy and ill all of a sudden. Kiro had fallen to the floor beside her, boneless. She forced herself to turn her head and look around. Many of the Uchiha ninjas were already unconscious on the ground, and it appeared that they were all suffering from the same weakness. Itachi and the ninjas from the other clans were the only ones who were unharmed. Yoshito glared at Sume and pushed the words out of her numb lips, "What treachery is this?" As her legs gave way and she fell to the ground, as an expert in assassination, she was able to identify the symptoms of a silent poison operating within her body and somewhat withstand it. The ninjas from Uchihas were their targets, and the poison must have gotten into the enclosed mission hall. To be able to withstand the poison, the other ninjas from the other clans had to have taken an antidote beforehand. Yoshito's friendly expression abruptly turned to one of scorn and disgust as Sume growled down at her, saying, "No more than the treachery you Uchihas are planning to do to my clan and the village." "You knew," Yoshito exclaimed in horror. When she attempted to move her numb hands in the direction of her kunai, one of Sume's dogs swiftly clamped down with its powerful teeth on the offending hand. The dog's powerful teeth dug into her flesh, and she felt a faint stab of pain radiate from her arm despite the poison's numbing effects. "You." She thought that Itachi must have betrayed the clan before she passed out and fell to the ground. The fact that the other Uchiha ninjas in the hall with her, who were unaware of the elders' scheme, would perish alongside her only made her feel sorry for them. An hour after midnight, as the mission leaders for each mission gave their mission reports, Sarutobi, standing in full body armor in the forest close to the Uchiha clan, nodded calmly. The Anbu and Jonins gathered behind him stood poised for combat. Sume smiled contentedly and declared, "The mission hall has been cleared. Most of the top ninjas of the Uchiha clans will remain knocked out for the next 10 hours. Those who were involved in the Uchiha elders' plans were transferred to the interrogation cells. Those who are not in the know, or who are against the plans of revolt, are placed in the Anbu holding cells until the whole mission is over." Itachi stated plainly, without a discernible shift in tone, the Uchihas in the Anbu squads are similarly dealt with. The Uchihas manning the police posts of Konoha have all been neutralized. Shibi stated. They have been sorted into the interrogating and Anbu holding cells as well. My team has taken over the manning of the police posts around Konoha for the night, until this matter is resolved. Sarutobi nodded and said, "Good. Then it's time to move out. Sume, take over command of Squad C. Shibi, return to the Konoha Police HQ and make sure Konoha remains safe for the duration of this mission. We don't want any unexpected surprise to crop up tonight. Itachi, take command of the barrier teams." Follow the plan and surround the Uchiha compound at 4 corners. You know your own targets. Let's pray this mission would progress smoothly till the end. Before sprinting to their designated teams, Sume, Itachi, and Shibi uttered the words, "Yes, Hokage-sama." The Hokage's strike teams advanced on the Uchiha compound in the dark of the night, hiding in the surrounding forest's shadows. The gathered ninjas divided into 5 groups as they approached the Uchiha compound. The 4 walls of the Uchiha compound were quickly reached by 4 of the much larger groups. With a lookout ninja perched atop a tree to watch the mission, the final group, which consists solely of Sarutobi and 4 additional ninjas managing the field communications system, remained in the middle of the forest. All of the teams were in their proper locations in 10 minutes. They waited for the Hokage's order while lying in hiding. A steady, firm voice spoke the one word everyone had been waiting for as a billow of clouds swept across the moon, briefly obscuring the land from the bright moonlight. Sarutobi said, "Begin." Over the radio, his words projected into his ninja's ears via the radio set they wore. The 4 ninja teams leapt from their hiding places and scaled the tall Uchiha walls in a matter of minutes after that one word signaled the beginning of the mission. Each of the 4 teams had a target to capture, and 1 man from each team remained on top of each side of the wall while the other teams entered the Uchiha compound. The hands of the 4 ninjas, including Itachi, who remained on the walls, flashed in a lengthy sequence of hand seals before an immersed chakra wall materialized, enclosing the entire compound. For as long as the wall was in place, nobody, not even a sound, could leave the compound. The one child and 14 of his clones were concealed in plain sight, against one of the walls, inside the Uchiha clan compound, but none of the Konoha ninjas ever saw or felt them. Using cutting-edge cloaking technologies never before seen in this world, the child and his clones were watching the Hokage's surprise attack with a grim smile, prepared to assist if needed. As it broke into the encrypted radio signal being used by the Hokage's team, SICA reported, 29 Uchihas have been captured. According to the mission particulars, that still left 3 Uchiha elders to round up before the mission is completed. A Jonin team is currently gathering all the Uchiha civilians and ninjas not involved in the going on towards the clan square in the center of the clan compound. They're informing the Uchihas what was going on. The Uchihas had showed righteous anger and shock at what their clan elders had done. Naruto nodded and said, "Good. As long as their anger are against those that are captured, the Hokage's teams should be able to maintain order in the clan compound. Keep the cloak over me. I want to take a closer look at the proceedings." With his clones right behind him, Naruto made a hand signal and leapt for the nearest building top. As they ascended to one of the taller buildings with a view of Uchiha Square, they all kept professional silence. All of the clones were taught to mentally converse with their respective SICAs by passing the words if necessary. The 3 council members have been caught. Itachi and his team have dropped the barrier. He and the Hokage's team are now on their way towards the clan square. SICA alerted Naruto. As he and his clones waited, Naruto nodded. Naruto wanted to stay for the entire mission to make sure nothing went wrong, even though every Uchiha on the mission list had been taken. Naruto felt just as committed to this mission as the other Hokage strike teams in the square below, given the amount of work he and his clones had done over the last few days to obtain information from the Uchiha clan for the Hokage. Even if it meant watching from the sidelines, he wanted to see this mission through to the end. A few minutes later, the Hokage, Itachi, and his men's figures dashed into the clan square, where the assembled Uchiha were chatting loudly in shock and fear over what had transpired. The Hokage and his group materialized in front of the Uchiha ninjas and civilians as the wind flickered. The crowd was silenced by the Hokage's sharp bark, and he then proceeded to explain to everyone present the strategies the Uchiha elders had devised to guarantee the success of their conquest of Konoha. Civilians in Uchiha reacted with shock and disgust, but the main commotion was caused when the Hokage started enumerating those who were part of the plan, those who were coerced into following it, and those who were killed for opposing it. When it was discovered that some well-known Uchiha members who had passed away in recent months from accidents or old age had actually died of natural causes, the entire Uchiha square erupted in hysteria and yelling. A lot of blame had been placed, particularly on those who were identified as being coerced into the scheme and evaded by the Hokage's teams. A number of Uchihas started fighting among themselves, forcing the Anbu teams to step in. But there was also an unanticipated consequence to the Hokage recounting the elders' schemes. The truth about what had happened to their own families and friends was revealed by those who were forced to follow their elders' instructions and were spared. The fact that so many Uchihas did this further supported the Hokage's assertions. Only 3 members of the once proud Uchiha clan council were spared because the Hokage deemed them to be incooperative followers of the majority's plans. Two of the three were the oldest Uchiha elders, and most of their council members had disregarded their advice. They were just too highly regarded in the clan to be eliminated, which is why they had survived assassination. Instead, the Uchiha Council had devised a method of putting them in their own homes as prisoners. They were released for the first time tonight after being imprisoned for 2 months. The head of the Uchiha clan, Fugaku, was the last member of the old Uchiha Council to be free. He was now frantically attempting to control his people while glaring at his oldest son, Itachi, with unmasked hatred. The clan leader blamed his oldest son for the current state of his clan, and it didn't take a genius to figure that out. As the Hokage's Anbu and Jonin teams attempted to subdue the crowd, Naruto frowned down at the events below. It was no small accomplishment, as many were terrified of the punishment their clan's elders were threatening to inflict on the entire group. The only thing keeping the entire Uchiha clan from rebelling against the Hokage's people out of desperation was the Hokage's assurance that they would not be punished for the deeds of their elders. The Hokage also announced that the Uchiha ninjas who were taken prisoner during tonight's mission and who were innocent of their elders' actions would be returned to the clan by the early hours of the following day. Naruto observed how the Hokage skillfully pitted the members of the Uchiha clan against one another, arousing and assuaging their anxieties until, ultimately, the entire clan was obligated to the Hokage for his kindness and generosity. At this point, Naruto realized the Hokage was not only the benevolent grandfather he had known as a child, but also a skilled and crafty politician. After just 1 hour, the Hokage was able to persuade all of the Uchiha ninjas and civilians to condemn their former council members, who were already being taken to the Anbu building. The Uchiha civilians and ninjas were already starting to calm down by the time the Hokage and his teams left the Uchiha clan compound, though many of them stayed in small groups as though they needed solace from the events of the previous evening. Knowing that the cloaked clones surrounding him could hear him, Naruto whispered softly, "We're going." Naruto felt secure enough to withdraw for the night as things had started to calm down. He was aware that 2 teams would be positioned to keep watch over the Uchiha clan for the remainder of the night in case something unforeseen occurred, in accordance with the Hokage's mission parameters. He would have no reason to stay behind and keep watch. As he had done each night for scanning purposes, he would simply leave the 4 standard clones outside the Uchiha compound. While traveling on the roofs, Naruto stopped when he heard a loud shouting in an alley. His wife and youngest son were staring at the 2 men with something like horror in their eyes as he looked down to see an enraged Fugaku battling Itachi. The final portion of Fugaku's yelled speech was all that Naruto managed to capture. "Banished from the clan. Don't ever return here." Fugaku's wife had run up to him and started a furious argument of her own, while Itachi had nodded before he had disappeared in a whirl of wind. Standing behind his mother, enmeshed in his parents' yelling, Sasuke appeared disoriented and isolated. Naruto was unable to suppress his sympathy for Sasuke. He had never been particularly close to the boy, but he was aware that Fugaku must be holding his oldest son responsible for what had transpired tonight. Even though the Hokage had cleared Fugaku of any wrongdoing, his position as the head of his clan is now in jeopardy. Fugaku would most likely be held accountable by the clan for failing to take action against the elders in the first place. But he was at a loss for what to do. Naruto left for home after taking one final glance back, unaware that the events of the night had caused Sasuke's family to fall apart. After 12 hours, it is late afternoon. Screams and tormented cries could be heard in the Konoha Anbu interrogation unit's darkness as the head of interrogation worked to extract as much information as possible from the Uchihas who had been captured. The head of interrogation was going to ensure that the village council received the explanation for why these Uchihas had turned against the village. Something started to bubble up from the ground in a shadowy corner. In less than a second, a figure in a cloak emerged from the shadows. Its head resembled one of the many carnivorous plants found in the dense forest of the Konoha. Specifically, it resembled an enormous form of the insect-eating fly trap plant. When the 2 extensions that resembled fly traps opened, a man's head was visible. The man had porcelain white skin on half of his face and pure black skin on the other half. The white side of the man's mouth gleefully exclaimed, "Haha, that looks interesting," as he watched a Uchiha elder with broken fingers undergo torture. He could see the interrogation room in front of him clearly through the glass window where the enigmatic figure stood. The black half of the man's face reprimanded him, saying, "Idiot, stop laughing. Do you want people to find us? Just record the whole interrogation." The white half said, "PFT," as it became quiet. Following Uchiha's torture in the room, the enigmatic figure watched Uchiha for the next hour. If someone came and went when no one was around, it would always fade into the ground. A Naruto clone was amusing himself outside the Anbu building by mentally going over his clone SICA's collection of cultural materials. While scanning the building, His clone SICA's sensors detected a persistent static interference that had been disrupting its scans in the Anbu building's western dungeons. Aside from jammer technologies, exotic energy cells, and various dense metals, few low-tech objects could possibly threaten SICA's miniature scanning system, which was state-of-the-art when it was built. The original was notified of the anomaly by the clone SICA so that it could be looked into further. However, the static interference was only included as a footnote in the scanned data because there was no immediate threat from the abnormality. After observing for an hour without being noticed by either ninjas or a sophisticated artificial intelligence system, the black and white humanoid figure gave himself a satisfied nod. As the figure started to sink to the ground, the white side exclaimed with delight, "Okay, we've recorded enough of the proceedings, time to go back to make the report." The black side of the man said, "Leader's going to have a field day with this info. I can't wait to see what he would do." He vanished from view, leaving no trace of his presence. Night had arrived and was shrouding Konoha in darkness. Following an afternoon public announcement informing the entire village of the capture of a few Uchiha dissidents who had been attempting to seize control of the village, the small village experienced its fair share of excitement for the day. The large village was filled with rumors that the small number of Uchihas who had been captured was actually a sizable portion of the Uchiha community, with a large number of the Uchiha's clan elders being involved in the plot. Even though the Hokage himself swiftly put an end to such rumors, the ordinary villagers continued to voice their opinions. Mozu Uchiha, a former leader of the Uchiha Council, sulked on his wooden slab bed in his cell. His body was covered in bruises and injuries from an afternoon spent with Konoha's interrogation department. He had all the prestige of being one of the Uchiha clan's more powerful political figures just a day ago, but in a single night, both his authority and his own base of support were destroyed. That damn Hokage had somehow discovered all of the participants in the scheme and was even able to determine who was compelled to follow it and who was following it voluntarily. Groups of Uchihas had been taken prisoner, and those who had been coerced into the scheme or were unaware of it were set free the next morning. Since only the bad Uchihas were taken prisoner, this action not only won the Hokage a lot of favor with the Uchiha clan, but it also made the entire clan turn against those who had almost brought the clan to ruin. Mozu experienced a surge of rage that overcame his physical discomfort. Those sheep with no brains. The Uchiha clan might have been able to repel the Hokage's unexpected attack if they had united. However, as the Anbu teams led those captured away like the submissive stupidlings they were, they had instead surrendered to the Hokage. A loud bang erupted from the cell next to Mozu as he lay on his bed, pondering all that had transpired. Voices could be heard, but Mozu ignored them. The Uchiha in the following cell was most likely taken for late-night interrogation. A few seconds later, Mozu heard footsteps and almost jumped when his cell door blew open. A young man entered, his eyes flashing with a pair of odd Sharingan designs, and Mozu gaped as he scampered out of his thin wood bed. Mozu was shocked for a moment before realizing he was staring at a Mangekyo Sharingan user. Only 18 individuals in the entire history of the Uchiha were known to have attained the Mangekyo Sharingan, and none of them were believed to be alive today. 3 factors contributed to the low number of Mangekyo Sharingan users. The first was that Mangekyo Sharingan only became active after Sharingan users experienced severe trauma from witnessing the death of a loved one. The second factor was that, regardless of whether they used the common trigger or not all Sharingan had the ability to progress to Mangekyo Sharingan. The third was brought on by the notorious bloodbath that took place before the Uchiha clan joined Konoha, several generations ago. In order to activate their Mangekyo Sharingan, a number of Uchiha ninjas tried to murder their loved ones. 2 were successful, but all of the criminals were apprehended and killed after the clan discovered their crimes.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.